COVERT Caracas, an action thriller. Chapter 1. The Dragonov's scope crosshairs settled on the sentry's left ear. Winds shifted, Sal Gomez whispered through the comm. 2.3 meters per second, northeast. Sam, Topper, adjusted the rifle a millimeter. 300 meters downslope, the FARC sentry smoked a cigarette outside the processing facility's main entrance. Corrugated metal buildings. Dirt roads. 55-gallon drums stacked like oversized Legos. The coca paste smell carried even at this distance. Gasoline and rotting vegetation and chemical sweetness that coated the back of your throat. Hold, Top said. The facility sat in a valley, carved between two ridgelines in a Rauca department, maybe 8 clicks from the Venezuelan border. They'd been watching for 72 hours from a hide site dug into the western slope. 4 men in a hole barely large enough for 2, taking shifts on watch while the others caught sleep in 90-minute increments. Top's knees felt like broken glass. His lower back had progressed past pain into a dull roar of white noise. Movement southeast corner, Matt Lee said. He had the thermal scope, tracking heat signatures through the facility's thin walls. 3 tangos entering the main building. That makes 17 inside, 4 perimeter. Benny Blaine shifted beside Top, his ghillie suit rustling dead leaves. Shift change hits at 1800. We call the strike at 1730, gives the birds 30 minutes to spin up and 45 to target. Whole place turns into pink mist before they finish dinner. Poetry, Sal said. Top's earpiece crackled. Different frequency. Different voice. Checkmate 6, this is Overwatch Actual. Authenticate Bravo Tango 7-9er. Top's stomach dropped. Overwatch Actual was Colonel Hendricks at JSOC. Hendricks didn't make social calls. Authenticated, Top said. Send traffic. Mission abort. Repeat, mission abort. Secure all equipment and prepare for immediate exfiltration. Coordinates incoming. How copy? The jungle sounds suddenly seemed very loud. Howler monkeys in the canopy. Some bird that sounded like a rusty gate. Top watched the sentry flick his cigarette into the dirt and grind it with his boot heel. Solid copy, Overwatch Actual. Request clarification on abort parameters. Negative. Secure comms only. You have 90 minutes to reach exfil coordinates. Overwatch Actual out. The frequency went dead. Sal spoke first. That's not good. Understatement of the year, Matt said. We've been up here for 3 days, watching these assholes cook enough cocaine to keep Miami happy through Christmas. Now we just walk away. Top pulled back from the Dragonov and rolled onto his side. His spine crackled like bubble wrap. Pack it up. Benny, collapse the hide. Matt, police all brass and trash. Sal, get the SATCOM ready. We need to download whatever coordinates they're sending before we lose signal. Top, the facility. I know. Top stared down at the compound. 21 men processing coca paste into cocaine base. Probably moving 500 kilos a week through the pipeline to the coast. Money that bought weapons. Weapons that killed Colombian cops and American DEA agents and anyone else who got in the way. But we've got orders. Benny started pulling apart the hide's framework. Branches and leaves woven into a low dome that had kept them invisible from air and ground. Orders change. Happens all the time. Doesn't mean we just. It means exactly that, Top said. We follow orders until someone with more stars tells us different. Now move. They moved. 20 minutes later, the hide site looked like virgin jungle floor. No trash, no brass, no equipment except what they carried. Top did a final sweep with his eyes, checking for any sign they'd been there. Nothing. Ghost protocol meant leaving no trace. No evidence. No proof. The SATCOM unit chirped. Sal pulled up the encrypted message and read coordinates off the screen. Exfil point is 12 clicks northwest. That's 4 hours, humping through jungle with full kit. Less if we push, Top said. We'll need water, Matt said. He checked his camelback. I'm down to half. Stream crossing at click 7, Sal said, pulling up the terrain map on his GPS. But it puts us within 2 clicks of a Venezuelan military outpost. Top checked his watch. 16:20 hours. Sunset at 18:30, full dark by 1900. We move in daylight, use speed. Night movement takes too long, and we miss the window. Sal, you're on point. Matt, rear security. Benny, you're with me in the middle. Standard spacing, weapons tight unless we make contact. They formed up and started moving through the jungle in single file. Sal navigated like he had GPS coordinates burned into his brain, picking routes through the densest vegetation where their movement would be hardest to track. The SEAL had grown up in San Diego, but his grandfather had been Yaqui, and somewhere in that bloodline was an instinct for terrain that Top had learned to trust without question. 40 minutes in, they hit the stream. Clear water running over brown rocks, maybe 3 meters wide and knee-deep. Sal held up a fist, and they all dropped into firing positions. He scanned both banks for 30 seconds, then gave the all-clear signal. They crossed one at a time, weapons held high. Top went third, feeling the current pull at his boots and the cold water shock his legs. On the far bank, he took a knee and covered Benny's crossing. Helicopter, Matt said. Everyone froze. The sound came from the south. Rotor wash cutting through jungle noise. Top pulled out compact binoculars and glassed the sky through a gap in the canopy. The helicopter appeared as a black speck against gray clouds. MIL Mi-17, Venezuelan military markings, heading northeast at maybe 500 feet. They're not looking for us, Sal said. Flight path's wrong. The helicopter kept going, and the sound faded. They started moving again. At 1800 hours, they stopped for a 10-minute break. Top checked his water, quarter full. He took 2 small sips and forced himself to cap the bottle. Benny chewed an energy bar that smelled like cardboard and peanut butter. Matt cleaned his weapon with a rag he'd carried for so many deployments it had worn thin as tissue paper. Sal studied the GPS. 6 clicks to exfil. We're making good time. What do you think it is? Benny asked. The abort. Could be anything, Top said. Intel compromise. Political situation. Maybe they just decided cocaine isn't worth the paperwork. You believe that? No. Me neither. Top stood and stretched his back. Small pops ran up his spine like a zipper. Doesn't matter what we believe. We get to exfil, we get our orders, we execute. That's the job. The job used to involve shooting bad guys, Matt said. Still does, Top said. Just maybe different bad guys in a different place. Now let's move before they decide to change the exfil coordinates too. They moved through the jungle as the light started to fail. Shadows grew longer and darker. The temperature dropped 5 degrees, and Top felt sweat cooling on his skin. His legs burned from the sustained pace. His shoulders ached from the weight of his kit. But they kept moving, because that's what operators did. You moved until you reached the objective, or you died trying, and quitting wasn't part of the equation. At 1940 hours, they reached the exfil coordinates. A clearing, maybe 20 meters across, tall grass beaten down by previous helicopter landings. Sal checked the GPS twice to confirm. This is it, he said. They set up a perimeter in the tree line, each man covering a different quadrant. Top listened to the jungle. Night sounds had started, insects and frogs and something that might have been a jaguar coughing in the distance. His earpiece crackled again. Checkmate 6, Overwatch actual. Nighthawk is inbound, ETA 12 minutes. Be advised, You have priority transport to Bogotá for immediate retasking. Acknowledge. Top felt that stomach drop sensation again. Retasking. Not debrief, not stand down. Retasking meant another mission, right now, no rest. Acknowledged, he said. Checkmate 6 standing by. He looked at his team. 3 men crouched in the darkness, weapons ready, eyes scanning for threats. They'd followed him through 4 deployments, and maybe 24 missions. He'd seen them do impossible things without complaint, without question, without hesitation. In 12 minutes, they'd find out what impossible thing came next. Chapter 2. The Black Hawk's rotors beat the air like a metal heartbeat. Top sat on the nylon bench seat, headset clamped over his ears, watching the jungle slide past below. The pilot had them at 200 feet, following the terrain, using darkness and nap of the earth flying to avoid radar. Through the open door, the wind hit his face, cold and sharp with jet fuel smell. Sal sat across from him, eyes closed but not sleeping. SEALs had that ability. Shut down completely for 5 minutes, wake up ready to fight. Benny cleaned his sidearm for the 3rd time, field stripping the Glock with muscle memory that didn't require light or thought. Matt stared out the opposite door, watching for threats that wouldn't come. The crew chief tapped Top's shoulder and pointed forward. Lights appeared on the horizon, Bogotá sprawl cutting a wound of orange sodium glow into the dark landscape. The helicopter banked left and started descending. They touched down at a private airfield on the city's northern edge. Not military, not commercial. The kind of place that didn't appear on maps and didn't ask questions. A Learjet sat on the tarmac with engines already spooling, white paint gleaming under floodlights. 2 figures stood beside a black SUV near the hangar, one tall and lean, one shorter with a female silhouette. The Black Hawk's skids hit concrete, and the crew chief slid the door full open. End of the line, gentlemen. That's your ride. Top grabbed his kit bag and jumped down. His knees protested, but held. The others followed, and they moved toward the SUV in a tactical spread, habits ingrained too deep to break, even in supposedly safe locations. The tall figure stepped forward as they approached. Lieutenant Colonel Hendricks, JSOC, looked like he'd been carved from teak and stress. Lean face, gray temples, eyes that had seen too many operations go wrong. He wore 5.11 pants and a polo shirt that didn't hide the sidearm on his hip. Top, Hendricks said. No handshake, no greeting. Your team good to go. 72 hours in a hide site watching cocaine production. We're outstanding, sir. Good. Because you're about to get very busy. Hendricks turned to the shorter figure. This is Rachel Vance, CIA Operations. She'll brief you en route. Rachel Vance stepped into the light. Late 30s, dark hair pulled back tight, olive skin that suggested Mediterranean ancestry. She wore black tactical pants and a photographer's vest with too many pockets. Her eyes did a quick evaluation of each team member. Professional assessment, no wasted time. Gentlemen, she said. Her voice carried East Coast education and field time that had worn off the polish. We need to be wheels up in 5 minutes. Colonel Hendricks has already cleared your insertion. I'll brief you once we're airborne. Insertion where? Top asked. Venezuela. The word hung in the humid air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Benny spoke first. Ma'am, we just spent 3 days 8 clicks from the Venezuelan border. If you needed us in Venezuela, we could have walked. Different part of Venezuela, Rachel said. And different mission parameters. The Learjet will have you in Cucuta in 90 minutes. From there we go to a safe house for full briefing. Cúcuta's Colombian, Sal said. Good geography, Rachel said. That's where you'll stage before crossing the border. Now we really need to move. Hendricks put a hand on Top's shoulder and walked him a few steps away from the others. When he spoke, his voice dropped low enough that only Top could hear. This comes from the top, Hendricks said. National Command Authority. The operation window is 24 hours, and the stakes are off the charts. Vance will give you everything you need, but understand this: there's no exfil plan if things go sideways. You'll be completely black, completely deniable. When are we not? Top said. This is different. This is political, at levels that make my head hurt. You get caught, we've never heard of you. You get killed, you were never there. Clear. Crystal. Hendricks released his shoulder and stepped back. Good hunting. Try not to start a war. Top walked back to his team. Rachel was already moving toward the Learjet, her stride efficient and purposeful. The team fell in behind her, kit bags over shoulders, weapons secured but ready. Inside the aircraft, cream leather seats and polished wood trim made a strange contrast to the violence implicit in their cargo. Rachel took a seat near the front and pulled out a ruggedized laptop. Top sat across the aisle. The others spread out, Sal by the emergency exit, Benny near the cockpit, Matt claiming the rear seats where he could watch the whole cabin. The engines wound up, and the Learjet started rolling before they'd even finished buckling in. No tower communications, no flight plan, just wheels leaving ground and the dark landscape dropping away beneath them. Rachel opened her laptop and tapped keys. A map appeared on the screen. Northern South America, Venezuela highlighted in red. She rotated the screen so Top could see. 26 hours ago, Rachel said, the president authorized a strike operation to arrest Nicolás Maduro on standing federal warrants related to narco-terrorism and corruption. The warrants are from 2020, but we've never had the political will to execute. That changed 3 days ago when Maduro's people greenlit a cartel hit on a DIA regional director in Miami. Killed him, his wife, and his 12-year-old daughter. Top felt his jaw tighten. When's the strike? 24 hours from now. Dawn Caracas time. Delta and DevGru are handling the actual arrest. Air support from the carrier group offshore. The whole package. So why do you need us? Rachel pulled up a different screen. 3 photographs, military personnel in Venezuelan uniforms. Because Maduro's not the only problem. He's got 3 senior defense officials who are completely in the cartel's pocket. These men control significant military assets, and they've been coordinating a response plan in case of American intervention. If they execute that plan when the strike hits, we could be looking at dead Americans and a failed mission that turns into a regional conflict. She tapped the first photograph. General Hector Rojas, Venezuelan Army. Commands the 41st Armored Brigade and has personal loyalty from maybe 2,000 troops. He's been stockpiling ammunition and positioning armor near Caracas for the past week. Second photograph. Admiral Luis Cardenas, Venezuelan Navy. Controls the coastal defense network and has been distributing weapons to reliable units. He's also got connections to Colombian cartels that move product through Venezuelan ports. Third photograph. Colonel Vicente Ayala, National Guard. Runs internal security in Caracas and has direct command of rapid response units. He's the most dangerous because his people are already in the city and they know the ground. Top studied the faces. Rojas looked like a recruiting poster. Square jaw, perfect uniform, medals in neat rows. Cardenas had the weathered face of a man who'd spent time at sea. Ayala's eyes held something cold that Top recognized from other men who enjoyed their work too much. You want us to kill them, Top said. No. Rachel closed the laptop. We want you to neutralize them. Remove them from the board without leaving evidence of American involvement. If they die mysteriously, their subordinates investigate and potentially discover our operation. We need them taken out of play in ways that look like bad luck or internal Venezuelan problems. Sal leaned forward from his seat. Ma'am, That's a pretty tall order for 4 operators with 24 hours. I know, Rachel said. That's why we pulled you off the FARC surveillance. You're the best we have for this kind of work. Flattery, Benny said. That means the mission's impossible. Not impossible, Rachel said. Just extremely difficult. And critically important. If these 3 men coordinate a response when the strike hits, we could lose aircraft, lose operators, and still fail to secure Maduro. The president made it very clear, this operation will not fail. The Learjet hit turbulence and dropped 10 feet. Top's stomach lurched, but his hand stayed steady on the armrest. Through the window, he could see lightning flickering inside distant clouds, illuminating their edges in purple-white strobes. Matt spoke from the back. What kind of support do we get? CIA has assets in Venezuela, Rachel said. I'll provide intelligence, equipment, and local coordination. But once you cross the border, you're on your own. No air support, no quick reaction force, no cavalry coming if things go bad. Standard Tuesday, Top said. Rachel almost smiled. I like your team already. Don't, Top said. We're extremely unpleasant people. Good. Unpleasant people are exactly what this mission requires. She pulled out a slim folder and handed it to Top. Preliminary target packages. Study them during the flight. When we get to Cucuta, I'll have complete dossiers, equipment, and infiltration routes prepared. Questions? About 100, Top said. But they can wait until we see the complete picture. Fair enough. Rachel closed her laptop and leaned back in the seat. Try to get some rest. Next 24 hours are going to be intense. Top opened the folder. Rojas stared up at him from a surveillance photograph. The general climbing into a Mercedes outside what looked like a government building. More photos followed. Cardenas on a naval base, pointing at something off-camera. Ayala in the back of a military truck, surrounded by soldiers who looked at him with fear instead of respect. 3 men. 3 different approaches. 24 hours to figure out how to remove them from play without starting an international incident. Top closed the folder and looked at his team. Sal had his eyes closed again, already grabbing sleep where he could find it. Benny stared out the window at the darkness. Matt cleaned his weapon for the 4th time, hands moving in familiar patterns. 4 operators against 3 generals and whatever forces they commanded. No support, no backup, no forgiveness if they failed. The Learjet cut through the night sky toward the Colombian border, carrying men who'd volunteered to do impossible things in terrible places for reasons that shifted like smoke but always came down to the same answer. Because someone had to, and they were willing. Top closed his eyes and tried to rest. His back still hurt from 3 days in the hide site. His knees felt like ground glass. His mind ran through scenarios and contingencies, and all the ways this could go wrong. The turbulence hit again, and the aircraft shuddered. Outside the window, lightning turned the clouds into momentary mountains of light. 24 hours until the strike. 24 hours to stop 3 men from turning an arrest operation into a bloodbath. The clock was running. Chapter 3. The safe house in Cucuta smelled like stale coffee and someone else's cigarettes. Top stood at the window, watching dawn paint the Colombian sky in shades of orange and gray. Across the street, vendors set up fruit stands, and a woman swept the sidewalk in front of a pharmacy with bars on the windows. Normal life happening, while he planned to cross an international border illegally to neutralize 3 men he'd never met. Behind him, Rachel Vance spread maps and satellite photographs across a folding table that had seen better decades. The safe house was a 2nd-floor apartment above a bodega, 2 bedrooms and a main room with furniture that looked salvaged from a government surplus auction. Bullet holes in one wall had been filled with spackle, but never painted over. The border's porous, Rachel said, not looking up from her maps. Venezuelan military patrols it, but they're understaffed and corrupt. The cartels have been using the same smuggling routes for 20 years. We'll use one of those. Sal sat on a folding chair, studying a handheld GPS unit. Which cartel? Does it matter? Matters if they decide to rob us or sell us to Venezuelan intelligence. Rachel looked up. The ELN controls the route we're using. They hate Maduro more than they hate us because he's been squeezing their cocaine operations. Our liaison paid them $50,000 and promised we're just passing through. They don't know who you are or what you're doing. They just know you're Americans going into Venezuela and coming back out within 48 hours. ELN, Benny said from the couch where he'd been dozing. Colombian Marxist guerrillas. Because this operation wasn't complicated enough. You have a better option? Rachel asked. Not really. Just noting for the record that we're trusting communists and drug dealers to get us into a hostile country. Welcome to South America, Rachel said. Coffee's in the kitchen. You'll want it strong. We move in 30 minutes. Top walked to the kitchen and poured black coffee from a dented pot into a foam cup. The brew tasted like diesel fuel and regret. He drank it anyway. Behind him, Matt entered and did the same, adding 3 sugars from packets that advertised a restaurant that probably didn't exist anymore. You good? Top asked. Always. Matt stirred his coffee with a plastic spoon. You think this works? Which part? Any of it. All of it. 4 guys, taking out 3 generals in a country that wants us dead while the whole U.S. military stages an arrest operation that'll probably turn into a firefight. Top drank more coffee. We've done worse. When? Mosul. That building with the chemical weapons. That was different. We had air support and 100 Rangers as backup. And we still nearly died. Exactly my point. Top set his cup on the counter. You want to back out? Matt looked at him with eyes that had seen combat on 4 continents. Never. I'm just making conversation. Make it quieter. Rachel looks like she doesn't appreciate pessimism. They returned to the main room where Sal had the maps memorized and was now field stripping his rifle for the second time since they'd arrived. Rachel pulled a plastic case from under the table and opened it. 4 Venezuelan passports, laminated and worn at the edges. Your covers, she said, handing them out. You're petroleum engineers from Maracaibo, traveling to Caracas for a conference. The company exists, the conference is real, and if anyone checks the registration list, your names will be there. Top examined his passport. The photograph looked like him, but not quite. Same bone structure, but different lighting, different expression. The name read, Carlos Mendoza, born Maracaibo, 1985. He flipped through the pages. Entry and exit stamps from Colombia, Panama, Brazil. Someone had put real work into these. How long do these hold up to scrutiny? Sal asked. Against a checkpoint cop, they're perfect, Rachel said. Against serious investigation by intelligence services, maybe 6 hours. Don't get detained. That's the plan anyway, Benny said. Rachel pulled out 4 more items. Nokia phones from maybe 2010, scratched and dented like they'd lived hard lives. Burners. They have local SIM cards and 1 number programmed in, mine. You call me, I call you. Nothing else. Don't take pictures, don't text your girlfriends, don't do anything that generates data. She distributed the phones. Top turned his over in his hand, feeling the weight. Technology from another era, when phones just made calls. Your weapons, Rachel continued, pulling out another case. Inside, 4 Glock 19s with scratch slides and worn grips. Serial numbers filed off and acid-etched. Untraceable. 17 rounds each, one spare magazine. Try not to use them. If we use them, Top said, the mission's already failed. Correct. Rachel closed the case. The whole point is discretion. You're ghosts. Nobody knows you're there, nobody sees you work, nobody finds evidence afterward. A knock rattled the door, 3 short, 2 long, 1 short. Rachel moved to answer it. Through the opening stepped a man who looked assembled from leather and rope. 60, maybe older, with a face carved by sun and violence. He wore jeans and a Guayabera shirt that didn't hide the pistol at his belt. This is Guillermo, Rachel said. He'll guide you to the crossing point. Guillermo looked at the 4 Americans with eyes that evaluated and dismissed them in the same glance. You ready? 5 minutes, Top said. You get 5 minutes. Then we walk. The border window closes at 0800 when the patrol shift changes. He left the door open and descended the stairs. His boots made no sound on the concrete. Top looked at his team. Gear up. Civilian clothes, 1 weapon each, passports and phones. Everything else stays here. They moved with the efficiency of men who'd packed for missions in the dark while under fire. Civilian clothes meant 5.11 pants that looked like regular trousers and Columbia shirts that hid armor. The Glocks went into concealed holsters. Knives disappeared into boots and pockets. They looked like contractors or aid workers or any of the 100 types of foreigners who moved through South America on business nobody examined too closely. Rachel handed Top a final item. A business card for Petroleo Consulting Services with a Maracaibo address and phone number. Your cover company. If anyone asks questions, you're there to assess drilling efficiency in the Orinoco Belt. I don't know anything about oil drilling. Then don't let anyone ask detailed questions. She walked to the window and checked the street. Guillermo's right, the window's closing. Venezuelan military runs patrols on a schedule, but occasionally they get ambitious. You need to be across before 0800. Top pocketed the card. What happens after we cross? You'll meet a contact in San Antonio del Táchira, Venezuelan side, about 2 kilometers from the border. He'll have a vehicle and drive you to Caracas. 8-hour trip if you don't hit checkpoints. 12 if you do. And then you do what you do best. Rachel's expression hardened. Remove 3 men from the board without leaving evidence. You have until dawn tomorrow. That's when the strike hits and everything goes loud. Sal stood and checked his watch. 23 hours, 14 minutes. Better start moving, Rachel said. They descended the stairs in single file. The bodega below sold beer and cigarettes to men who looked like they'd killed people for less money than was in Top's wallet. Nobody looked up as they passed through. Outside, the morning sun had burned through the haze, and the street temperature was already climbing toward uncomfortable. Guillermo waited beside a Toyota pickup that had been white maybe a decade ago. Rust bloomed along the fenders, and the tailgate was held shut with bungee cords. Get in. Americans in the bed, covered by the tarp. Seriously? Benny said. You want to cross the border, sitting up front, waving at the cameras? Guillermo opened the tailgate. Get in. They climbed into the truck bed. The metal was hot enough to burn through their pants. Guillermo threw a canvas tarp over them and tied it down. The world became brown canvas and diesel fumes, and the sound of the engine turning over. The truck moved through Cucuta streets, bouncing over potholes and speed bumps. Under the tarp, Top felt sweat start immediately. The temperature had to be pushing 90 degrees. Next to him, Sal breathed steady and controlled. Matt shifted position, and his elbow hit Top's ribs. Sorry, Matt whispered. Save it for Venezuela. The truck slowed and stopped. Voices outside, Spanish, rapid fire and casual. Checkpoint. Top's hand moved to his Glock but didn't draw. Under the tarp, they'd be invisible to casual inspection, but one curious guard with initiative could ruin everything. The voices continued. Laughter. Someone slapped the truck's side panel, and it lurched forward again. They drove for 20 minutes. The road got rougher, the bouncing worse. Top's back screamed with each pothole. The heat under the tarp became oppressive, thick enough to choke on. The truck stopped again, and the engine cut off. Footsteps. The tarp peeled back and sunlight stabbed Top's eyes. Guillermo stood there with 3 other men, all armed with AK-pattern rifles, and the casual alertness of people who lived by violence. Out, Guillermo said. We walk from here. They climbed from the truck bed, blinking in the light. The landscape had changed. They were in jungle now, thick vegetation on both sides of a dirt road that barely qualified as a path. The air smelled like green rot and river water. One of Guillermo's men handed out machetes. Stay close. Don't talk. If we see military, hit the ground and don't move. They started walking. The path twisted through jungle that pressed in from all sides. Vines hung like cables. Things moved in the undergrowth. Animals or reptiles or people, Top couldn't tell. His shirt was soaked through with sweat within 5 minutes. His boots slipped on mud that hadn't dried since the last rain. 30 minutes in, Guillermo raised his fist. Everyone stopped. Through the trees ahead, voices carried. Venezuelan military patrol. At least 4 men from the sound, maybe more. They were moving parallel to the path, close enough that Top could hear their conversation. Something about a soccer match and who owed who money. Guillermo pointed at the ground. Top and his team dropped flat into the mud, faces down, weapons ready but not drawn. The voices grew louder, peaked, then faded. Guillermo waited 2 full minutes before standing. They kept moving. An hour after leaving the truck, they reached a river. 20 meters wide, brown water moving fast over rocks. On the far side, Venezuela. The border existed as a line on maps, but here it was just more jungle, same trees, same mud, same heat. That's the Tashira River, Guillermo said. On the other side, you're in Venezuela. My job ends here. Follow the path, 2 kilometers until you reach the road. Your contact will be waiting in a blue Chevrolet. If he's not there, turn around and walk back. You'll die if you continue alone. Comforting, Benny said. Guillermo almost smiled. Good luck, Americans. Try not to start a war. Second person who's told us that, Matt said. Maybe you should listen. They waded into the river. The current hit harder than expected, pulling at their legs, trying to sweep them downstream. Top leaned into it and pushed forward, feeling mud suck at his boots with each step. Halfway across, the water reached his waist. His Glock would still fire wet, but he'd need to clean it first chance he got. On the far bank, they climbed out dripping and covered in river mud. Behind them, Guillermo and his men had already disappeared into the jungle. Top checked his watch, 07:52. 8 minutes before the patrol shift change. Let's move, he said. They followed the path through jungle that looked identical to the Colombian side. 2 kilometers felt like 10. The heat built until breathing required effort. Something that might have been a snake slid across the path, and Sal stepped over it without breaking stride. The jungle opened onto a dirt road. Parked 30 meters away, a blue Chevrolet sedan that had seen better years and probably better owners. A man leaned against the hood, smoking. He saw them and flicked the cigarette into the dirt. You're late, the man said in accented English. Traffic was terrible, Top said. The man smiled without warmth. Get in. Caracas is 8 hours away, and we have many checkpoints to pass. They climbed into the Chevrolet. The seats were torn, and the air conditioning didn't work, but the engine started on the first try. The man put the car in gear, and they rolled down the dirt road toward the highway beyond. Top looked back once at the jungle and the river hidden somewhere in the green chaos. Colombia was gone. The United States was gone. They were across the wire now, in a hostile country with fake passports and limited ammunition, and 23 hours to accomplish the impossible. The Chevrolet hit the paved highway and accelerated toward Caracas. Chapter 4. The checkpoint came up fast. Concrete barriers painted in yellow and red stripes, 3 National Guardsmen with Kalashnikovs, and a sergeant who looked bored enough to be dangerous. The driver touched the brakes and the Chevrolet slowed. His name was Diego, and he'd spoken maybe 10 words since they'd left San Antonio del Táchira. Now he glanced in the rearview mirror at Top. Passports ready. You're petroleum engineers from Maracaibo. Conference at the Hilton. You know nothing about politics. The car stopped. The sergeant walked around from the front, hand resting on his rifle. He bent down to look through the driver's window, eyes scanning each face in the vehicle. His uniform was crisp despite the heat, and his boots had polish on them. The dangerous kind of cop, the one who gave a damn. Documents, the sergeant said. Diego handed over his license and registration. The sergeant examined them, then pointed at Top and the others. Them too. Top passed his passport forward. Sal, Benny, and Matt did the same. The sergeant took all 5 documents and walked to the guard shack. Through the window, Top watched him sit at a desk with a laptop that looked newer than anything else at the checkpoint. He's running the passports, Matt said quietly. I can see that. Rachel said they'd hold up. She also said not to get detained. The sergeant typed, waited, typed more. His expression didn't change. Behind the car, traffic started backing up, 2 trucks and a bus, drivers getting impatient. One of the other guards walked over and waved them to a second lane. The traffic flowed around the stopped Chevrolet. 5 minutes passed. The sergeant stood and returned, passports in hand. He bent down again and looked directly at Top. You're petroleum engineers. Yes. From Maracaibo. Correct. What company? Petroleo Consulting Services. Top said it without hesitation, like he'd worked there for years. And you're going to Caracas for what purpose? Conference on Drilling Efficiency in the Orinoco Belt. 3 days of presentations and technical workshops. The sergeant's eyes narrowed. The Orinoco Belt is heavy crude. Different extraction than conventional wells. What's your specialty? Top felt Sal shift slightly in the back seat. Benny's hand moved incrementally closer to his concealed Glock. Matt stared straight ahead like none of this concerned him. Thermal recovery methods, Top said. Steam injection to reduce viscosity. My associates handle horizontal drilling and pumping systems. The sergeant stared at him for 3 more seconds, then handed back the passports. The conference was last month. Top's heart rate stayed steady through pure discipline. We're attending the follow-up session. Smaller group, focused on implementation challenges. At the Hilton. That's correct. The sergeant stepped back and waved them through. Welcome to Venezuela. Drive carefully. Diego put the Chevrolet in gear, and they rolled forward through the checkpoint. Nobody spoke for 2 kilometers. That was close, Benny finally said. Rachel's passport's held, Sal said. Rachel didn't know about petroleum engineering, Top said. That was luck. No. Matt turned to look at Top. That was you reading a Wikipedia article on the flight while the rest of us slept. Top said nothing. The Chevrolet 8 highway, passing through landscape that shifted from jungle to scrubland, to the sprawl of small towns that fed Caracas from below. They hit 3 more checkpoints over the next 6 hours. Each time, the passports worked. Each time, the cover story held. By the fourth checkpoint, the guards barely looked at the documents before waving them through. The sun was setting when Caracas appeared, a bowl of concrete and glass towers ringed by mountains, shantytown barrios climbing the slopes like rust spreading up metal. The city stretched for kilometers, 2 million people living in the kind of density that made Top's tactical brain itch. Too many buildings, too many alleys, too many places for things to go wrong. Diego navigated through traffic that followed rules only the locals understood. Cars changed lanes without signaling, motorcycles split traffic at speeds that defied physics, and pedestrians crossed wherever they felt like it. The Chevrolet's horn got more use in 10 minutes than it probably had all year. "Your hotel is in Altamira," Diego said, speaking for the first time in hours. "Expensive area. Safe. Lots of foreigners." "We're not staying at a hotel," Top said. Diego looked in the mirror. "Rachel said. Rachel told you to drive us to Caracas. I'm telling you where to take us in Caracas." "Where?" Top pulled out the Nokia phone and checked the text Rachel had sent during their last stop. An address in Petare, the massive slum that sprawled across Caracas's eastern edge. The kind of place where police didn't patrol and questions didn't get asked. "Petare," Top said, reading off the address. Diego's hands tightened on the wheel. "No. That's too dangerous. We're not asking. Petare is controlled by gangs. They kill people for shoes. You won't last 5 minutes. Then you better drive fast." Diego cursed in Spanish, something about Americans and death wishes, but he changed lanes and took an exit that led away from the gleaming towers of downtown toward the eastern sprawl. The neighborhood deteriorated with every kilometer. Glass towers became concrete apartment blocks, became improvised structures that looked assembled from shipping containers and hope. Streets narrowed. Trash accumulated in piles that nobody bothered to remove. Groups of young men stood on corners, watching traffic with eyes that calculated value and vulnerability. "This is insane," Diego said. "Rachel will kill me if you die." "Nobody's dying," Top said. "Yet." The Chevrolet climbed into Petare's warren of streets, barely wide enough for the vehicle. Buildings pressed in from both sides, 3 and 4 stories of unpainted concrete connected by power lines and laundry hanging from windows. Music thumped from somewhere, reggaeton bass that rattled loose panels. Diego stopped in front of a building that looked slightly less terrible than its neighbors. "This is the address. I'm not waiting." "Good," Top said. "We'll take it from here." They climbed out with their bags. The street went quiet. Faces appeared in windows and doorways, watching. A dog barked, and another answered. Top counted at least 6 young men in visual range, all tracking their movement. Diego's Chevrolet reversed and disappeared around a corner before they reached the building's entrance. The door hung crooked on broken hinges. Inside, the stairwell smelled like urine and something that might have been a dead animal several floors up. The walls were covered in graffiti, gang signs, and territorial markers that Top couldn't read but recognize for what they were. "Second floor," Sal said, checking the address on his phone. "Apartment 2C." They climbed stairs that creaked under their weight. On the landing, a woman watched them from a doorway, a baby on her hip. She said nothing. Top nodded and kept moving. Apartment 2C's door had been reinforced with a steel plate and 3 deadbolts. Top knocked, 2 short, 3 long. The pattern Rachel had specified. The door opened. A man stood there with a Beretta in his hand, pointed at the floor but ready. 40s, scarred face, eyes that had killed people. He looked at Top and stepped back. "You're the Americans." "We're petroleum engineers," Top said. The man almost smiled. "Of course. Come in before someone decides you're worth robbing." The apartment was one large room, with a kitchen alcove and a bathroom behind a curtain. 2 windows overlooked the street below, covered with sheets that blocked most of the light. A folding table held a laptop and 3 mobile phones. The floor was concrete, swept clean. A mattress in the corner looked like it had been slept on recently. "I'm Felix," the man said, closing and locking all 3 deadbolts. "Rachel said you needed a place nobody would look." "Congratulations. Nobody looks here unless they live here." "How secure is this location?" Matt asked. "Depends on your definition. The local gang won't bother you because I paid them. Police won't come because they're afraid to enter Pater. Venezuelan intelligence doesn't operate here because nobody of importance lives in places like this." Felix set his Beretta on the table. "So you're secure from official attention. From street criminals, that's your problem." Benny dropped his bag and moved to the window. He lifted the sheet slightly and checked the street below. Multiple sight lines. No choke points if we need to run. Could be worse. Could be better, Sal said. "Show me better in Caracas that's also off the grid." Felix opened a cooler and pulled out bottles of water. He tossed one to each of them. "Rachel said you're here for work. What kind of work requires 4 Americans sneaking into Pater?" "The confidential kind," Top said. "Fair enough." Felix sat at the table and opened his laptop. "I can provide local knowledge. I know the city, I know the players, I know who to bribe and who to avoid. But I don't know your mission, and I don't want to know." "Clear." "Crystal." "Good. Now, you need anything specific? Weapons, vehicles, information?" "All 3 eventually," Top said. "Right now, we need 12 hours to rest and plan. We've been moving for 16 hours straight." Felix nodded. "The mattress is yours. I'll sleep in my car. There's food in the kitchen, nothing fancy but it's edible. The water from the tap will make you sick, so stick to bottles. Bathroom works most of the time. Sometimes the power cuts out, but it usually comes back." He stood and grabbed a jacket from a hook on the wall. "I'll be back at dawn. Don't open the door for anyone. Don't leave the apartment. Don't make noise. Most of all, don't attract attention." "We're good at being invisible," Top said. "You better be." Felix unlocked the deadbolts and opened the door. "Because if the gangs decide you're a problem, I can't protect you. And if Venezuelan intelligence discovers you're here, nobody can protect you." He left and locked the door from outside. His footsteps faded down the stairwell. Top walked to the window and looked out at Pater spreading across the mountainside, hundreds of thousands of people living in structures that defied building codes and probably gravity. Lights flickered on as darkness settled, creating a constellation that rivaled the stars. "Home sweet home," Benny said. "I've slept in worse," Matt said. "When?" "Fallujah. That collapsed building with the dead insurgents in the basement." "That doesn't count. We were only there for 4 hours." "Still counts." Sal opened the laptop and booted it up. Rachel sent mission files. Target packages on all 3 generals. Updated satellite imagery. Building layouts. Security patterns. "We've got work to do." Top turned from the window. The city stretched below them, indifferent and enormous. Somewhere out there, 3 men went about their business, unaware that 4 Americans had crossed an international border illegally with orders to remove them from the board before dawn. "Get the files up," Top said. "We need to figure out how to neutralize 3 protected military officials in a hostile city without leaving evidence or starting an international incident." "Simple," Benny said. "Nothing about this is simple." "I know. I was being sarcastic." Top pulled up a chair to the table. Sal had the files open now, photographs and documents and intelligence reports. 3 faces stared from the screen. Rojas, Cardenas, Ayala. Men with power and protection and enemies who'd been trying to kill them for years without success. Outside, Caracas settled into its nightly rhythm. Music and voices, and occasional gunfire that nobody seemed to notice. In the apartment, 4 men studied their targets and planned murder disguised as everything else. The mission clock ran in Top's head, even though he'd stopped mentioning it. Chapter 5. Rachel Vance came through the door at 05:30 carrying 2 bags of arepas and coffee that smelled like burned hope. Top hadn't slept. None of them had. The laptop screen cast blue light across the table where they'd spent the night dissecting 3 lives, looking for vulnerabilities, mapping patterns, finding the cracks where pressure could be applied. "You look terrible," Rachel said, setting the food on the table. "You look fresh," Top said. "I hate you a little. I slept in a hotel with air conditioning and hot water. Professional privilege." She pulled up a chair and opened one of the bags. "Eat. You'll need energy." Benny grabbed an arepa and bit into it. Corn flour and cheese, still warm from wherever Rachel had found them. He chewed and swallowed. "Better than MREs." "Everything's better than MREs," Matt said. Rachel pulled out her own laptop and opened it beside Sal's. "Brief me. What have you learned?" Top took coffee and ignored the fact that it tasted like diesel mixed with ash. "Rojas is the easiest target and the hardest mission. He's got a pattern, leaves his wife at 0700 every morning, drives himself to his mistress's apartment in Los Palos Grandes, stays until 1000, then goes to his office. 3 times a week, like clockwork." "The mistress is leverage," Rachel said. "Better than leverage. She's pregnant. 4 months along. Rojas has been paying for an apartment and sending her money through accounts his wife doesn't know exist." Rachel smiled. "That's excellent blackmail material." "Except we can't blackmail him," Sal said. "Blackmail requires ongoing contact and ability to enforce consequences. We need him neutralized immediately, not cooperative over time." "So we use the mistress differently," Rachel said. "Plant evidence. Make it look like Rojas was stealing from government accounts to fund his affair. Let Venezuelan internal security do our job." Top nodded. "That's option 1. Option 2 is simpler but messier. Stage a break-in at the mistress's apartment. Make it look like Rojas interrupted it and got injured. Concussion, maybe broken ribs. He's in the hospital during the strike, unable to command anything." "I like option 1, Rachel said. "Less chance of collateral damage." "Agreed. But we need access to Rojas's personal laptop. The evidence has to look real enough to survive initial scrutiny." Rachel pulled a flash drive from her pocket. "This contains financial records that will pass examination. Government accounts with suspicious transfers. Dates that match his visits to the mistress. It'll take investigators maybe 6 hours to find, which puts Rojas in custody right around the time the strike hits." She slid the flash drive across the table. Top pocketed it. "Cardenas is harder," Matt said. He had satellite imagery pulled up, showing La Guaira Naval Base. He's on base most of the time. Lives in officer housing inside the perimeter. Drives an armored car with a security detail. The man's paranoid and professional." "He's also a drunk," Rachel said. 4 sets of eyes turned to her. "Naval intelligence picked it up 6 months ago," Rachel continued. "Cardenas has a bottle of scotch in his desk. He starts drinking around 1400 hours and continues until he leaves for the day. By 1800, he's impaired enough that his staff knows not to bother him with anything requiring decisions." "A functioning alcoholic," Sal said. "That's our opening." "Maybe," Top said. "But we can't just poison his scotch. Death triggers investigations. We need him out of commission in a way that looks natural. Benny leaned back in his chair. What if it's not the scotch? What if it's something medical? Elaborate. Cardenas is 58 years old. He's got a belly on him from the satellite photos. Probably hasn't run a mile in 20 years. Classic heart attack profile. We induce a cardiac event. Not fatal, just severe enough to put him in ICU during the critical window. Rachel shook her head. Too risky. If he dies, you've committed murder on Venezuelan soil. If he survives and talks, he might remember something that leads back to you. So we don't give him a heart attack, Matt said. We give him something that looks like a heart attack. Panic attack, severe enough to incapacitate him but not kill him. Symptoms are similar: chest pain, shortness of breath, sense of impending doom. His staff rushes him to the hospital. Doctors run tests, find nothing immediately life-threatening but keep him for observation. Top considered it. What causes a panic attack severe enough to hospitalize someone? Chemical trigger, Sal said. There are compounds that induce panic responses. Rapid heart rate, hyperventilation, the whole package. Military's been researching them for crowd control applications. Rachel pulled up files on her laptop. CIA has something similar. Derivative of a Russian development program from the 90s. It's absorbed through skin contact. Symptoms hit within 10 minutes and last several hours. The person experiences severe anxiety and physical symptoms that mimic cardiac distress. Can you get it? Top asked. I can have it delivered within 2 hours. Then that's Cardenas. We contaminate something he touches regularly. Desk surface, car door handle, something he'll contact during his drinking hours when his judgment is already impaired. His chair, Benny said. He sits at his desk for hours every afternoon. We apply the compound to the armrests. He absorbs it through his hands, symptoms hit, his staff finds him in distress and rushes him to the hospital. How do we access his office? Matt asked. That's the real problem, Rachel said. She pulled up building schematics. La Guaira is a secured facility. Multiple checkpoints, ID verification, cameras everywhere. You can't just walk in dressed as janitors. No, Top said. But someone delivers supplies to the base every day. Food service, fuel, equipment. We identify a delivery schedule and insert during a delivery. Rachel typed on her laptop. Give me 30 minutes. I'll have the base's vendor list and delivery schedules. Good. That's 2 targets with solid plans. Top moved to the third set of files. Ayala stared up from a surveillance photograph, cold eyes above a thin smile. Ayala's our problem child. He's the most dangerous, Rachel agreed. National Guard. Internal security. He runs networks throughout Caracas, and he's smart. Suspicious. Paranoid, in the useful way. Sal had been studying Ayala's file for hours. He doesn't have Rojas's weakness for women, or Cardenas's drinking problem. His financials are clean. His personal security is excellent. He changes his route to work every day, never follows the same pattern twice. The man's a professional. Everyone has a weakness, Top said. Maybe. But we haven't found his yet. Rachel closed her laptop. Ayala's the reason I wanted to brief you in person. The other 2 targets you can handle with minimal support. Ayala requires something different. Explain, Top said. Ayala's not just careful. He's actively looking for threats. His security team does counter-surveillance sweeps. He rotates his personal guards weekly, so nobody gets too familiar with his schedule. He lives in a compound with walls and dogs and cameras covering every angle. So we can't get to him at home, Matt said. Correct. And we can't get to him at work, because National Guard headquarters is locked down tighter than the presidential palace. Which leaves us one option. We get to him through his network. Rachel opened a folder and spread photographs across the table. Ayala's been coordinating with mid-level officers throughout the National Guard, building his response plan for if something happens to Maduro. He's meeting with these officers at a compound in Katia, Western Caracas controlled territory. Tomorrow night, at 2100 hours, he's scheduled to distribute orders to approximately 12 officers. You want us to hit a meeting with 13 armed military officers, Benny said. No. I want you to sabotage the meeting. Ayala's distributing encrypted orders, printed documents with codes and rendezvous points and communication protocols. If those orders are compromised, his entire network falls apart. Top studied the photographs. The compound was surrounded by walls. Single entry point. Buildings arranged in a courtyard pattern. How do we access his orders? You don't. You corrupt them. The orders are stored on Ayala's laptop until the meeting. He prints them on site, using a portable printer his team brings to the compound. If you can access that printer and alter the output, every order he distributes will be wrong. Wrong how? Sal asked. Contradictory information. Different rendezvous points. Conflicting commands. When his officers try to execute tomorrow, they'll be scattered and confused. Ayala's network becomes worthless. That requires physical access to the printer, Top said. Which means infiltrating the compound while a meeting of armed National Guard officers is in progress. Yes. That's insane. That's the mission. Rachel met his eyes without blinking. Rojas and Cardenas are straightforward. Ayala requires something more creative. The compound has security, but it's not military grade. You can penetrate it, access the printer, corrupt the orders, and extract before anyone realizes what happened. Top looked at his team. Matt shook his head slightly. Benny looked skeptical. Sal studied the compound layout, like he was already planning infiltration routes. It's possible, Sal said finally. Difficult, but possible. We'd need detailed intelligence on the compound's layout and security patterns. I'll have that for you by noon, Rachel said. We'd need to know exactly where the printer is located and when they set it up, Matt added. My contact inside Ayala's network can provide that information. And we'd need a diversion, Top said. Something that pulls attention away from wherever we're working. Fire is traditional, Benny said. Nothing pulls attention like flames. Rachel stood and gathered the photographs. I'll arrange everything you need. Equipment, intelligence, transportation. Your window for Ayala is tomorrow night, 2100 to 2300 hours. After that, he distributes the orders and the network is activated. What about Rojas and Cardenas? Top asked. Handle them today. Rojas first. His pattern puts him at the mistress's apartment starting at 0700. That's 90 minutes from now. Cardenas this afternoon, during his drinking hours. Ayala tomorrow night. 3 targets, 3 different approaches, all neutralized before the strike at dawn. She walked to the door and unlocked the deadbolts. Felix will provide whatever support you need. I'll be available on the phones. Questions? About 100, Top said. But they'll wait until we see how the first target goes. Fair enough. Rachel opened the door. Remember, no bodies, no evidence, no international incidents. You're ghosts. Act like it. She left. The deadbolts clicked shut behind her. Top stood and stretched. His back cracked like bubble wrap. All right. Sal, you're with me on Rojas. Benny and Matt, start planning the Cardenas approach. We move on Rojas in 90 minutes. Full brief in 60. They dispersed to their tasks. Sal pulled up more detailed maps of Los Palos Grandes. Benny and Matt huddled over the naval base schematics. Top walked to the window and looked out at Caracas waking up below, cars filling streets, people heading to work. Normal life proceeding while 4 Americans planned to dismantle 3 military careers before breakfast. The sun climbed over the mountains and burned off the morning haze. Somewhere in the city, General Hector Rojas was kissing his wife goodbye and climbing into his Mercedes, completely unaware that his carefully constructed double life was about to collapse in ways he'd never see coming. Top checked his Glock, verified the magazine, chambered around. The flash drive with falsified financial records sat heavy in his pocket. 60 minutes, he said to the room. Then we find out if Rachel's intelligence is as good as she thinks it is. Chapter 6. The Mercedes pulled up to the apartment building at 07:14. Top watched from a cafe across the street, sitting at a table with a newspaper he wasn't reading and coffee he wasn't drinking. Sal was 2 blocks away in a stolen Corolla, monitoring radio traffic and providing overwatch through a spotting scope. General Hector Rojas stepped out of the Mercedes wearing civilian clothes, khakis and a polo shirt that did nothing to hide his military bearing. He locked the car with a key fob and walked to the building entrance. No bodyguards. No security detail. Just a man visiting his pregnant mistress before heading to work. Target entering building, Top said into his radio. The earpiece was small enough to be invisible, the microphone clipped inside his collar. Copy, Sal replied. Building security is 1 guard in the lobby. Cameras on the entrance and elevator. No exterior coverage on the rear fire escape. Top folded the newspaper and left money on the table. He walked half a block, turned into an alley, and approached the building from the rear. The fire escape zigzagged up 6 stories of concrete, painted a color that might have been beige before pollution turned it gray. He climbed. The metal stairs rattled under his weight, but the morning traffic noise covered the sound. 3rd floor landing. The window was closed but not locked. Top pulled a pry bar from inside his jacket and worked it into the frame. The latch popped with minimal force. Inside was a hallway. Tile floor, fluorescent lights, the smell of cooking from someone's breakfast. Apartment 3B was 4 doors down. Top moved quiet and smooth, his footsteps making no sound. Years of practice made his movement almost liquid. At the door he stopped and listened. Voices inside, male and female, muffled by the door but distinct. Rojas and the woman. The conversation sounded casual, domestic. Top pulled out a bump key and worked it into the lock. 3 taps with the pry bar, and the mechanism turned. He waited. The voices continued. The conversation shifted to something about doctor's appointments and vitamins. Top turned the handle slowly and pushed the door open 3 inches. The apartment opened up to his right, living room visible, kitchen beyond. The voices came from deeper inside. Bedroom probably. Top slipped through the door and closed it behind him. The apartment was nicer than the building exterior suggested. Leather furniture, flat-screen television, artwork that might have been real. Rojas was spending real money, keeping this woman comfortable. A laptop sat on the coffee table. Top crossed the room and opened it. The screen lit up, password protected. He pulled the flash drive from his pocket and inserted it into the USB port. Rachel's software went to work immediately, bypassing the login screen and accessing the hard drive. The voices from the bedroom got louder. Something about the baby's name. The woman wanted Sophia. Rojas thought Valentina sounded better. Top opened the laptop's financial management software. Bank accounts appeared, personal accounts Rojas used for his legitimate expenses. Top navigated to a separate folder, buried 3 directories deep. More accounts. Transfers. Payments to this address. Rent, utilities, medical bills. All coming from government accounts that Rojas had skimmed over the past 18 months. He inserted Rachel's falsified records into the existing files, backdating them to match Rojas's actual pattern. The forgeries were good enough to pass forensic accounting, slightly inflated amounts that would look like embezzlement rather than normal expenses. Evidence that would survive the first wave of investigation. A door opened in the bedroom. Footsteps. Top closed the laptop and moved behind the couch, dropping into a crouch that made his knees scream. The footsteps entered the living room. Rojas walked past, heading for the kitchen. Water ran in the sink. A glass filled. Top stayed frozen. The couch blocked him from view, but if Rojas turned around, he'd be visible. If Rojas noticed the laptop had been moved, he'd start asking questions. If Rojas looked down at exactly the right angle, he'd see Top's reflection in the television screen. Rojas drank the water, set the glass in the sink, walked back toward the bedroom. The door closed. Top stood and moved to the laptop. He ejected the flash drive and pocketed it. The screen still showed the financial software. He navigated back to the hidden folder and opened one file, just enough to leave a digital footprint showing recent access. Then he closed everything and left the laptop exactly as he'd found it. The voices resumed in the bedroom. The woman laughed at something. Rojas said something Top couldn't make out. He moved to the apartment door and listened. The hallway outside was quiet. He opened the door and stepped through, closing it softly behind him. The lock clicked into place. He walked back to the fire escape window and climbed out. Down the fire escape. Into the alley. Out to the street where morning traffic flowed like nothing had happened. Top walked 3 blocks before speaking into his radio. Package delivered. Moving to extraction point. Copy, Sal said. I'll pick you up at the market. Top found the market 2 blocks away, a bodega with fruit stacked outside and a cat sleeping in the window. The Corolla pulled up and he climbed in. Sal put the car in gear and merged into traffic. Clean? Sal asked. Clean. Rojas never knew I was there. Files are planted. Next person who investigates his finances will find exactly what Rachel wants them to find. When does the investigation start? About 10 minutes ago. Top pulled out the Nokia phone and dialed. Rachel answered on the second ring. Status, she said. Files planted. Laptop accessed. Digital footprint established. Excellent. Stand by. The line went quiet, but didn't disconnect. Top heard typing on Rachel's end. Voices in the background speaking rapid Spanish. More typing. Done, Rachel said. Anonymous tip just went to Maduro's internal security office. Details about a general stealing government funds to support a mistress. Bank account numbers. Transaction dates. The address where he visits her. They'll have investigators on it within the hour. How long until they move on Rojas? Intelligence indicates Maduro's internal security is efficient when money's involved. They'll verify the accounts first, confirm the transfers are real. Once they see the evidence, they'll move fast. My estimate is Rojas gets arrested around 1400 hours. That puts him in custody well before the strike window. Top checked his watch. 07:43. 6 hours. That's tight. It's what we have. Now focus on Cardenas. His window opens at 1400 when he starts drinking. You need to be in position before then. We'll be ready. Rachel disconnected. Top pocketed the phone and looked at Sal. Back to the apartment. We need to brief Matt and Benny on the Cardenas approach. Sal navigated through traffic that got heavier as the morning progressed. Caracas woke up loud and aggressive, horns and engines and street vendors shouting prices. They passed a checkpoint, but the National Guardsmen just waved them through. Two foreign-looking men in a beat-up Corolla didn't rate attention. At the apartment building in Petare, they climbed the stairs and knocked the pattern on the door. Matt opened it, Beretta in hand, then holstered when he saw who it was. "How'd it go?" Matt asked. "Smooth. Rojas is neutralized, he just doesn't know it yet." Top moved to the table, where Benny had the naval base schematics pulled up. "What have we got on Cardenas?" "Felix came through," Benny said. "La Guaira receives supply deliveries every day at 0900. Food service trucks mostly. They're inspected at the gate, but once they clear security, they drive directly to the commissary warehouse. Unloading takes 45 minutes. Camera coverage. Gate and main roads. But the warehouse loading dock has a blind spot. No cameras for about 20 meters between the dock and the access road. Security personnel. 2 guards at the gate. Random patrols inside the base, but they're inconsistent. Felix says the base commander is more concerned with external threats than internal security. Matt pulled up a different file. Cardenas's office is in the administration building. 3rd floor, corner office overlooking the harbor. He arrives around 0930, leaves at 1700. Starts drinking at 1400 like clockwork. "How do we access the building?" Top asked. "Maintenance tunnels," Sal said. He pointed to underground lines on the schematic. The base was built in the 70s with service tunnels connecting major buildings. They're used for electrical and plumbing access. Most aren't guarded because nobody thinks about them. "Where's our entry point?" "The commissary warehouse. There's a tunnel access panel in the loading dock area. We enter during the delivery confusion, access the tunnels, navigate to the administration building, surface in a maintenance closet on the 3rd floor." Top traced the route with his finger. "How far?" 300 meters through the tunnels. Maybe 10 minutes if we move fast." "And extraction?" "Same route in reverse. We're in and out during Cardenas's drinking hours. He starts feeling symptoms. His staff finds him in distress. We're already back in the tunnels heading for the commissary." "What about the chemical compound?" Top asked. "Rachel said she'd deliver it." Matt picked up a small vial from the table. Clear liquid, maybe 30 milliliters. "Felix brought it an hour ago. Absorbed through skin contact. Symptoms appear in 10 to 15 minutes. Effects last 4 to 6 hours. Application method. We contaminate his chair armrests. He sits down, touches the treated surfaces, compound absorbs through his hands. By the time he feels symptoms, we're off the base." Top picked up the vial and held it to the light. The liquid looked like water. "Felix tested this. Rachel vouched for it. CIA's been using variations of this compound for years. It's reliable." "Reliable isn't the same as safe." "Nothing about this mission is safe," Benny said. "But it's better than shooting him and hoping nobody notices." Top set the vial down. Timeline. Food service delivery arrives at 0900. We need to be part of that delivery without the actual delivery crew knowing we're there. "Felix arranged it," Matt said. "One of the trucks is driven by a contractor who owes him money. The driver will make a stop on the route, leave the truck running, go inside a building for 5 minutes. We climb in the back, hide among the food crates, ride onto the base. And the driver knows nothing. When he checks his cargo, before unloading, we'll already be in the tunnels. He completes his delivery, leaves the base, goes about his day. Top checked his watch. 08:20. We leave here at 08:30. That gives us time to reach the intercept point and board the truck. Sal, you're with me. Matt and Benny, you stay here and monitor communications. If this goes wrong, we'll need immediate extraction. Define wrong, Benny said. Anything that results in Venezuelan military chasing us through tunnels. That's pretty broad. Then stay flexible. Top gathered his gear, Glock, suppressor, compact tools for accessing the tunnel panel. Sal did the same. They traveled light, because speed mattered more than firepower in a mission built on stealth. Matt handed Top a radio. Frequency 3. We'll monitor from here. If you need extraction, Felix has a boat standing by at the harbor. A boat. We're infiltrating a naval base. Seemed appropriate. Top clipped the radio to his belt. If we're not back by 1600, assume we're compromised. Burn everything and extract without us. Not happening, Matt said. Those are the orders. Understood. Still not happening. Top looked at his team. 3 men who'd followed him into worse situations than this. Men who'd proved their worth in places where mistakes meant death and second chances didn't exist. Let's go put an admiral in the hospital, Top said. Try not to get caught. They left the apartment and descended to the street where Felix waited in a different vehicle, a panel van with commercial plates and faded paint. Top and Sal climbed in the back. Felix closed the doors, and they pulled into traffic. Through the van's small windows, Top watched Caracas slide past. The city looked normal. People going to work. Kids in school uniforms waiting for buses. Street vendors setting up for the day. Nobody knew that in the next few hours, 3 senior military officials would be removed from power in ways that looked like coincidence, bad luck, and their own poor judgment. The van stopped in an industrial area near the harbor. Felix opened the back doors. Truck comes by in 5 minutes, Felix said. Driver's name is Octavio. He'll stop at that warehouse for his cigarette break. You board then. Where does he make his stop after the base? Sal asked. He doesn't. La Guaira is his last delivery. After he unloads, he drives back to the depot. So we can't ride back out. Correct. You'll need the tunnels and the extraction boat. Top jumped down from the van. The industrial area was quiet, except for traffic noise from the highway above. Warehouses and shipping containers, and the smell of salt water and diesel fuel. If this goes wrong, Top started. It won't, Felix said. But if it does, I was never here and we never met. Understood. Felix drove away. Top and Sal moved behind a shipping container and waited. 3 minutes later, a refrigerated truck appeared, white paint streaked with road grime, company logo on the side advertising fresh produce. The truck stopped in front of a warehouse. The driver climbed out, lit a cigarette, and walked inside through a side door. Go, Top said. They sprinted to the truck. Sal climbed up first and opened the rear doors. Inside, wooden crates stacked 4 high. Lettuce, tomatoes, the institutional food that fed military bases. They climbed in and pulled the doors closed behind them, wedging themselves between crates where they wouldn't be visible from outside. The truck's interior was cold. Top's breath came out in fog. Beside him, Sal checked his weapon one more time. Footsteps approached. The driver's door opened and closed. The engine started. The truck pulled back into traffic and headed toward La Guaira Naval Base, carrying 2 Americans hidden among the vegetables, about to infiltrate a secured facility to poison an admiral's chair with a compound that would mimic cardiac distress. Top closed his eyes and went over the plan one more time, looking for flaws, finding several, accepting them because perfection wasn't possible, and good enough had to be sufficient. The truck slowed. Voices outside, Spanish, authoritative. The gate checkpoint. Papers being examined. A guard walked around the truck, his footsteps audible through the metal walls. The rear doors rattled, but didn't open. More conversation. Someone laughed at something. The truck's engine revved and they rolled forward. They were inside La Guaira Naval Base. Chapter 7. The truck stopped and the engine cut off. Top heard the driver's door open and close. Footsteps moved away toward the warehouse entrance. Voices called out greetings in Spanish. Workers who knew each other, familiar routine, another delivery day at La Guaira. 2 minutes, Top whispered. He and Sal stayed frozen between the crates, listening. The loading dock came alive with sound, forklifts beeping, pallets scraping concrete, men shouting instructions about where to stack the produce. Through gaps in the crates, Top could see light bleeding through the truck's rear doors. The doors opened. 2 workers climbed into the truck and started pulling crates toward the tailgate. They worked from the front, methodical and efficient. Top and Sal pressed tighter into their hiding spot behind the rear stacks. A crate shifted above them. Top's hand moved to his Glock but didn't draw. The workers grabbed 2 more crates and carried them out. Voices outside discussed a soccer match. Someone complained about the heat. Now, Top said. They moved while the workers were outside. Out from between the crates, staying low, to the truck's rear opening. The loading dock stretched 50 meters to their right, workers and forklifts and stacked pallets. To the left, the blind spot Benny had identified. 20 meters of empty space with no cameras, no personnel. Just concrete and a maintenance access door. Top dropped from the truck and moved left. Sal followed. They walked fast but not running, 2 men in work clothes who belonged there. The maintenance door was steel, with a simple handle. Top tried it locked. Sal pulled a tension wrench and pick from his pocket. 10 seconds later, the lock clicked open. They slipped through and closed the door behind them. Inside was darkness and the smell of machine oil. Top pulled a small LED light from his pocket and clicked it on. The beam revealed a concrete stairwell, descending. Service tunnels, just like the schematics showed. They descended. At the bottom, the tunnel stretched in both directions, concrete walls, overhead pipes, electrical conduit running along the ceiling. The air was cooler down here, and damp enough to make Top's skin feel clammy. Administration building is northeast, Sal said, checking a handheld GPS that Felix had modified to work underground using inertial navigation. 280 meters. They moved through the tunnel, weapons drawn, lights playing across walls that hadn't seen maintenance in years. Water dripped somewhere. The pipes overhead hummed with whatever they carried. Their footsteps echoed off the concrete. 100 meters in, the tunnel branched. Sal checked the GPS and pointed right. They turned and kept moving. The tunnel narrowed here, forcing them to move single file. Top's shoulders almost brushed both walls. A sound ahead stopped them. Top killed his light, and they pressed against the wall. The sound repeated, footsteps, coming from the opposite direction. Someone else was in the tunnels. Top's hand tightened on his Glock. Sal moved to the other wall, giving them crossing fields of fire. The footsteps got closer. A light appeared around the bend ahead, bobbing with someone's stride. A maintenance worker rounded the corner, carrying a toolbox and flashlight. He was humming something under his breath. Not paying attention, just another day in the tunnels fixing whatever needed fixing. He looked up and saw them. His mouth opened to yell. Top closed the distance in 3 steps and grabbed the man's collar, spinning him into the wall. Sal caught the toolbox before it hit the ground. The worker's flashlight clattered on concrete. Silencio, Top said, pressing his forearm across the man's throat. Not enough pressure to choke, but enough to make the point. End. The worker nodded frantically. His eyes were wide, and his breathing came fast. He looked maybe 50 years old, with gray in his hair and grease under his fingernails. Just a worker who'd picked the wrong tunnel at the wrong time. "Cable," Sal said, pulling zip ties from his pocket. They secured the worker's hands behind his back and sat him against the wall. Sal stuffed a shop rag in his mouth, not tight enough to suffocate but enough to prevent shouting. Top retrieved the worker's flashlight and turned it off. "Lo siento," Top said quietly. Someone would find him, eventually. Shift change, another maintenance call, something. By then Top and Sal would be done and gone. They continued down the tunnel. The GPS showed 100 meters to the administration building. The tunnel turned left, and they followed it. Overhead, the pipes changed from old iron to newer PVC. They were under the administration building now. Sal pointed up. A maintenance hatch in the ceiling, steel with a locking wheel. He climbed onto Top's shoulders and worked the wheel. It resisted, corroded from years of humidity, but finally broke free with a metallic groan that echoed through the tunnel. Sal pushed the hatch open and pulled himself through. Top followed, grunting with the effort. His back screamed in protest. They emerged in a maintenance closet filled with cleaning supplies and the smell of industrial disinfectant. Sal closed the hatch, and they stacked boxes over it to hide the access point. Top checked his watch, 09:58. Cardenas would be in his office by now. Drinking time started at 1400, 3 hours away. "We can't stay in the closet for 3 hours, Sal whispered. "We don't have to." Top cracked the closet door and looked out. A hallway stretched in both directions, tile floor polished to reflect the fluorescent lights. Empty. He heard voices from somewhere but distant, muffled by walls. They moved into the hallway. Doors on both sides, most closed, a few open showing offices with people working. Top and Sal walked with purpose, 2 maintenance workers checking on something, nothing unusual. Nobody looked up as they passed. Cardenas's office was at the end of the north corridor. Top had the floor plan memorized. Corner office, windows overlooking the harbor, secretary stationed outside. They needed access to the office when Cardenas wasn't there, and the secretary was gone. They found a storage room 3 doors down and ducked inside. Metal shelves held office supplies and boxes of files. A window looked out over the parking lot. "Now we wait," Top said. Sal sat on the floor and pulled out a protein bar. He ate it slowly, methodical, conserving energy. Top checked the vial of compound in his pocket. The liquid caught the light from the window, clear and innocent looking. Time crawled. Top watched the hallway through a crack in the door. People passed occasionally, but nobody came to the storage room. At 11:30, the secretary outside Cardenas's office stood and walked away. "Lunch break probably." "That's our window," Top said. They moved down the hallway. Cardenas's door was closed. Top listened, voices inside muffled. Cardenas and someone else, discussing something about ammunition inventory. The conversation sounded heated. They retreated to the storage room. At 12:15, the secretary returned carrying a bag from a restaurant. She sat at her desk and started eating. The smell of fried plantains drifted down the hallway. At 13:45, Cardenas emerged from his office. He spoke to the secretary, something about not being disturbed. She nodded. He returned to his office and closed the door. "Drinking time," Sal said. "Now or never." Top pulled out the vial and a small applicator brush Felix had provided. They moved down the hallway. The secretary had her back to them, focused on her computer screen. Top tried the door handle, unlocked. He opened it slowly and slipped inside. Sal followed and closed the door behind them. The office was larger than expected. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, naval memorabilia on the walls. Through the windows, The harbor stretched blue and bright under afternoon sun. Destroyers and patrol boats sat at anchor. Cardenas sat at his desk with his back to the door, staring at his computer screen. A bottle of Chivas Regal sat beside the keyboard, a quarter empty. He was already drinking. Top froze. The plan assumed they'd have access to an empty office. Instead, Cardenas was here, armed, sober enough to fight, and all Top had was a vial of compound that required skin contact. Cardenas turned in his chair. He saw them immediately. His hand moved toward the desk drawer where his sidearm probably lived. Top crossed the room in 2 steps and drove his fist into Cardenas's solar plexus. The Admiral folded forward, gasping. Sal moved behind him and secured his arms, pulling them behind the chair. Cardenas tried to yell, but couldn't draw enough breath. His face went red, and veins stood out on his forehead. "Don't fight," Top said quietly. "We're not here to kill you." Cardenas's eyes showed pure rage. He tried to break Sal's grip, but the seal had position and leverage. Top pulled zip ties from his pocket and secured Cardenas's wrists to the chair arms. "What are?" Cardenas managed to gasp. "Shut up," Top said. He opened the vial and used the applicator to coat both chair armrests with the compound. The liquid was absorbed almost immediately, leaving the leather looking unchanged. Sal cut the zip ties. Cardenas's hands came free, and he immediately lunged for the desk drawer. Top grabbed his collar and threw him back into the chair. Cardenas's hands hit the armrests. "Sit," Top said. "Don't move. Don't yell. In about 10 minutes, you're going to feel very unwell. Your staff will take you to the hospital. Doctors will run tests and find nothing immediately life-threatening. You'll recover in a few days." "Who are you?" Cardenas demanded. "Ghosts," Sal said. They moved to the door. Top looked back once. Cardenas sat in his chair, hands on the armrests, absorbing the compound through his skin. He looked confused and angry, and already slightly panicked, like some part of his brain was registering that something was very wrong. Top opened the door. The secretary still had her back to them, typing on her keyboard. They stepped into the hallway and walked toward the maintenance closet. Nobody challenged them. Nobody shouted. They reached the storage room and slipped inside. "That didn't go as planned," Sal said. "No. But it's done." Top checked his watch. "Compound should hit him in 8 to 12 minutes. We need to be in the tunnels before his staff finds him in distress." They moved to the maintenance closet. Sal removed the boxes covering the hatch and opened it. Top descended first, dropping into darkness, his boots hitting concrete. Sal followed and pulled the hatch closed above them. They moved through the tunnels fast, retracing their route. The maintenance worker was still where they'd left him, sitting against the wall. His eyes tracked them as they passed, but he didn't try to move. Top almost apologized again, but didn't. Some things were better left unacknowledged. At the warehouse tunnel entrance, they stopped and listened. The loading dock above was quieter now, afternoon lull. Top climbed the stairs and cracked the door. The dock was empty, except for one worker smoking in the shade. They waited. The worker finished his cigarette and walked back inside. Top and Sal emerged from the stairwell and moved across the dock toward the perimeter fence. The blind spot worked both directions, no cameras to record their exit. At the fence, they found the section Felix had identified. Chain link with a gap at the bottom where it had pulled away from the concrete. They squeezed through, scraping their shoulders on metal that left rust stains on their clothes. On the other side, the harbor stretched before them. Boat docks, commercial warehouses, and 300 meters away, a fishing boat that looked abandoned but had its engines running. Felix's extraction vessel. They walked toward it, 2 workers finishing a shift, nobody worth noticing. Behind them, inside the administration building, Admiral Cardenas's heart rate was accelerating. His breathing was getting shallow. The compound was doing its work, flooding his system with artificial panic that would feel absolutely real. By the time they reached the fishing boat, Cardenas's secretary would be calling for medical help. In an hour, he'd be in an ambulance headed for the hospital. By tomorrow morning, when the strike hit Caracas, he'd be in ICU with doctors trying to understand why a man with no heart condition had suffered what looked like a cardiac event. Felix stood at the boat's wheel, watching them approach. He didn't wave or acknowledge them until they were aboard. Then he pushed the throttle, and the boat pulled away from the dock, cutting through harbor water toward the open sea. "Problems?" Felix asked. "Cardenas was in his office," Top said. "We had to adapt." "Did you kill him?" "No. But he saw our faces." Felix cursed in Spanish. "That's bad." "It doesn't matter. By tomorrow, this whole operation goes public anyway. One admiral's description of 2 Americans won't change anything." They motored past the harbor breakwater, into chop that made the boat pitch. Top grabbed a rail and watched La Guaira Naval Base recede behind them. Somewhere in that complex of buildings and ships and armed personnel, an admiral was experiencing the worst panic attack of his life. 2 targets neutralized. 1 remaining. Colonel Vicente Ayala, the paranoid professional who changed his routes and trusted nobody and ran security networks throughout Caracas. The target that required infiltrating a meeting of armed National Guard officers to corrupt documents they hadn't seen yet in a compound they'd never entered. Top pulled out his phone and called Rachel. "Status," she said. "Cardenas is compromised. Should be in hospital within the hour. But we had complications, he saw us." Rachel was quiet for 3 seconds. "Did he see you long enough to describe you?" "Yes." "That's unfortunate, but manageable. Venezuelan intelligence doesn't have your real identities, and by tomorrow, it won't matter. Focus on Ayala. That's your critical target. The meeting is tonight at 2100 hours. I'll have final intelligence at the safe house by 1800. We'll be there." Rachel disconnected. Top pocketed the phone and looked at Sal. The SEAL was watching the horizon, his face showing nothing. Combat operators learned early not to dwell on complications or failures. You adapted, you moved forward, you completed the mission. The fishing boat carried them east along the coast. Felix would drop them in Caracas, at a commercial marina where they'd blend into the afternoon crowds. From there, back to Petare. Back to planning. Back to figuring out how 4 men were going to infiltrate a National Guard meeting and sabotage documents without getting caught, shot, or starting the international incident everyone kept telling them not to start. Top closed his eyes and felt the sun on his face and the boat moving under his feet. The operation was 2/3 complete. 1 target remained. The hardest target. The one that required everything to go exactly right. In his experience, nothing ever went exactly right. Chapter 8. The compound sat in Katia, like a fortress pretending to be a warehouse. Top studied it through binoculars from a rooftop 2 blocks away. Concrete walls 3 meters high topped with broken glass embedded in mortar. Single steel gate with a guard shack. 2 sentries visible, probably more inside. The buildings within formed a rough square around a central courtyard where vehicles were parked. 3 entrances, Matt said, lying beside him with a spotting scope. Main gate, personnel door on the south wall, and what looks like a service entrance on the west side. All of them covered by guards. Camera placement? Top asked. 4 visible. 1 on each corner of the main building, covering the courtyard. Blind spots exist, but they're narrow. Benny crawled up beside them, keeping his profile low against the roofline. I walked the perimeter. The walls are solid. No convenient gaps or weak sections. They built this place to keep people out. Or keep them in, Sal said. He had Rachel's intelligence package open on a tablet, studying floor plans that CIA had assembled from satellite imagery and a source Top didn't want to know about. The main building is where Ayala holds his meetings. Second floor, central room. His people bring the equipment, laptop, printer, communications gear. Top checked his watch. 1943. The meeting started at 2100. 77 minutes to infiltrate a guarded compound, locate the printer, corrupt it, and extract without alerting 13 armed National Guard officers. Rachel's contact, Top said. When do we hear from him? As if summoned, Top's phone vibrated. He pulled it out and read the text message. A phone number and 2 words, call now. Top dialed. A man answered on the first ring, his Spanish rapid and nervous. You're the Americans. We're petroleum engineers. Yes, of course. I have information about tonight's meeting. Go ahead. The equipment arrives at 2000 hours. Colonel Ayala's communications officer brings everything: laptop, portable printer, secure radio. They set up in the conference room on the second floor. The printer is a Canon model, battery-powered, connects to the laptop via wireless. Can we access the wireless network? Top asked. No. It's a direct device-to-device connection. No router, no network to penetrate. You would need physical access to either the laptop or the printer. Top closed his eyes and thought. Physical access meant being in the room or close enough to intercept the wireless signal. How many people are in the conference room during setup? 2. The communications officer and 1 guard. They test the equipment, print a sample page to verify everything works, then leave the room and post guards outside. When do they leave? Usually 20 minutes before the meeting. Colonel Ayala doesn't arrive until exactly 2100. He values punctuality. Where's the conference room located? Second floor, north side. Windows overlook the courtyard, but they're barred. Single door from the interior hallway. The hallway has guards stationed at both ends. Top looked at his team. 3 faces reflecting the same calculation. This was going to be extremely difficult. What about the buildings surrounding the courtyard? Top asked. Storage, mostly. Vehicle maintenance on the ground floor of the west building. The east building is living quarters for guards who work extended shifts. The south building is ammunition storage, locked and alarmed. Guards in the living quarters during the meeting. Some. Maybe 3 or 4 who are off duty. Top thought about the setup. Ayala's paranoia showed in every detail. Secured compound, multiple guards, equipment tested before use, limited access to the meeting room. Breaking into the conference room would require moving through a building full of armed National Guardsmen who were specifically trained to prevent exactly that kind of intrusion. The courtyard, Top said. What's the lighting situation? Floodlights on all 4 corners. Illuminated from 2000 hours until 0600. Power source. Generator in the maintenance building. Backup generator in the south building. If one fails, the other takes over automatically. How fast? 3 to 5 seconds. Maybe 10 if there are complications. 3 to 5 seconds of darkness. Not enough time to cross the courtyard and access the building. But maybe enough time for something else. The conference room windows, Top said. You mentioned they're barred. Yes. Steel bars, professionally installed. Very secure. But the glass isn't bulletproof. Silence on the line. Then carefully, I don't believe so, no. Top looked at Matt and pointed at the rifle case they'd brought to the rooftop. Matt understood immediately and opened it, revealing a customized AR-15 with a suppressor and scope. "One more question," Top said into the phone. "After they set up the equipment, do they lock the conference room?" "Yes. Steel door, deadbolt lock. Only Colonel Ayala and the communications officer have keys." "Understood. You've been very helpful. Please, I'm taking significant risk providing this information. If Colonel Ayala discovers..." "He won't discover anything from us. You have my word." Top disconnected and looked at his team. "New plan. We can't infiltrate the compound without alerting every guard in the place. So we don't infiltrate. We go through the window." "The barred window," Benny said. "We cut the bars. From outside." Sal pulled up the compound layout on his tablet. "The north wall faces an alley. We could get within 20 meters with a vehicle. Cutting through steel bars makes noise. Not if we do it during a distraction." "What kind of distraction?" Top pointed at the generator building. "We kill the power. 10 seconds of darkness and confusion. During that window, we cut the bars and access the conference room." Matt shook his head. "Cutting through security bars takes minutes, not seconds. Even with a high-speed rotary tool. We don't cut through them. We cut the mounting points. Steel bars are anchored into the concrete window frame. The anchor points are smaller diameter than the bars themselves. We cut 4 anchor points per bar. The whole assembly comes loose." "That still takes time," Matt said. "Which is why we pre-cut the anchor points before the meeting. We make shallow cuts during the day when nobody's paying attention. Then tonight, we complete the cuts during the power outage. 30 seconds work maximum." Benny studied the satellite imagery on the tablet. The alley behind the north wall has building access from multiple businesses. We could enter one during business hours, work from inside, cut the anchor points from outside their window. "Too visible," Sal said. "Anyone in the alley sees us working on the compound wall. So we work at night. Tonight. Right now." Top checked his watch again. 1956. "That gives us 1 hour to complete the pre-cuts before Ayala's team arrives to set up equipment." "Tight," Matt said. "Everything about this mission is tight. Can you make the cuts?" Matt considered. "With a battery-powered angle grinder and diamond blade, yes. The noise will be noticeable, but brief. Each anchor point takes maybe 20 seconds. 4 anchor points per bar, 3 bars per window. That's 12 cuts. 4 minutes of work if everything goes perfectly. 8 minutes if we hit complications." Top made the decision. "We do it. Benny and Sal, you handle the pre-cuts. Matt and I will set up Overwatch and provide security. If guards come to investigate the noise, we abort and find another approach." "What other approach?" Benny asked. "I don't know yet. That's why we're trying this one first." They gathered their equipment and descended from the rooftop. The streets of Katia were active even at this hour. Music from windows, people on stoops, kids playing football with a deflated ball. They moved through it like they belonged. Just more faces in a neighborhood that saw plenty of faces. Felix had arranged another vehicle, a van that looked like it transported construction supplies. Matt drove with Top in the passenger seat. Sal and Benny rode in the back with the equipment, checking the angle grinder and spare batteries. The alley behind the compound's north wall was narrow and dark, lit only by light bleeding from nearby windows. Trash accumulated against one wall. A cat watched them from atop a dumpster, eyes reflecting green in the headlights. Matt killed the engine. Movement at the compound gate. 2 vehicles just pulled in. Top checked through binoculars. An SUV and a sedan, both driving into the courtyard. Personnel getting out, carrying equipment cases. 2004. Ayala's people were arriving early. "We're out of time," Top said. "Either we do this now, or we find another way." Sal opened the van's rear doors. "We're already here. Let's work." They moved to the compound's north wall. The conference room windows were 4 meters up, barred and dark. Sal pulled a collapsible ladder from the van and extended it against the wall. Benny slung the angle grinder over his shoulder and climbed. Top and Matt took positions at both ends of the alley, weapons concealed but ready. If anyone investigated, they'd have maybe 30 seconds warning before things got complicated. The angle grinder's motor started with a high-pitched whine that cut through the night sounds. Benny pressed the diamond blade against the first anchor point. Sparks showered down in orange cascades. The noise was loud enough to wake the neighborhood. A window opened across the alley. A woman leaned out and shouted something in Spanish about the noise. Matt called back an apology, said they were repairing water damage, would be done in a few minutes. The woman cursed them and slammed the window shut. Benny finished the first cut and moved to the second. The grinder's whine changed pitch as it bit into a different angle of steel. More sparks. The smell of burning metal. Inside the compound, voices shouted. Footsteps running. Top tensed, but the sounds moved away toward the main gate, not toward the north wall. Something else had drawn their attention. Third cut. Fourth cut. Benny moved to the second bar. The grinder's battery pack showed half charge. Enough for maybe another 3 minutes of cutting. A guard appeared at the compound's corner, 30 meters away. He carried a flashlight and was walking the perimeter. Standard patrol, or investigating the noise. "Contact," Top said quietly into his radio. Benny shut off the grinder. The sudden silence felt deafening. He pressed himself flat against the ladder, trying to minimize his profile. The guard's flashlight beam swept along the wall, playing across concrete and the tops of broken glass. He was walking slowly, methodically, checking everything. The beam reached the base of the ladder. Top's hand moved to his Glock. Beside him, Matt had his weapon drawn and pointed at the guard through a gap in the van's doors. If the guard looked up and saw Benny on the ladder, they'd have to neutralize him. That meant bodies, investigation, mission failure. The flashlight beam moved past the ladder and continued along the wall. The guard reached the corner and turned back toward the gate. His radio squawked something about vehicle inspection. He responded and picked up his pace, heading back to the main compound entrance. "Clear," Top said. Benny started the grinder again. The whine seemed even louder now. He completed the second bar's cuts and moved to the third. The battery pack was showing red, low charge warning. He pushed harder, trying to finish before the power died. Final cut. The grinder's motor stuttered, and the battery died completely. Benny descended the ladder with the tool. 2 bars done completely, he said. Third bar has 3 cuts finished, 1 to go. Good enough, Top said. We'll complete it during the power outage tonight. Load up. They collapsed the ladder and threw it in the van. Matt started the engine, and they pulled out of the alley. Behind them, the compound sat unaware that its security had been compromised. The conference room window looked unchanged from the ground. 3 barred windows like always, nothing unusual. But 2 of those bars were held only by gravity now, and the third bar needed 30 more seconds of work before it would come free. They drove back toward Peter, taking a circuitous route to ensure they weren't followed. Top's phone rang. Rachel. "The meeting is confirmed for 2100, she said. Ayala will arrive at 20:55 with his full security detail. Officers start arriving at 20:45. Your window is very narrow. We know. We have a plan. Does it involve cutting power to the compound? Top didn't ask how she knew. Rachel had sources everywhere. Yes. I can help with that. The generator has a remote kill switch, maintenance feature installed when the system was upgraded last year. I can trigger it from here. And the backup generator? That one you'll need to handle manually. It's in the south building. Fuel line is accessible from outside through a panel near ground level. Accessible meaning guarded. Meaning you'll need to be creative. But if both generators go down simultaneously, you'll have your darkness window. Top thought about the logistics. We need the power cut at exactly 20:50. That's when the equipment is set up, but before Ayala and the officers arrive. Conference room will be empty, except for posted guards. I can do 20:50, Rachel said. Make sure you're in position. She disconnected. Top looked at his team. We're going back tonight. 2000 hours. We need to disable the backup generator, complete the window cuts, access the conference room, and corrupt the printer before Ayala arrives at 20:55. 5-minute window to do about 15 minutes of work, Matt said. Then we work fast. They reached the apartment in Petare as full darkness settled over Caracas. Inside, they spread equipment on the table. Tools, weapons, the vial of corrupting software Felix had acquired that would alter printer output in ways the user wouldn't immediately notice. How does the software work? Sal asked. You install it on the printer, Felix said. He'd been waiting in the apartment, monitoring police radio frequencies for any mention of Americans or base infiltration. It intercepts print jobs and makes small changes. A different address here, wrong time there, contradictory coordinates. Nothing obvious enough to catch immediately, but enough to make the orders useless. Install method. USB port on the printer. Plug in this device, it auto-installs, takes 30 seconds. You remove the device, and nobody knows anything's changed. Top examined the small USB drive. And this works. Rachel's people tested it. Yes, it works. Good. Top checked his watch. 1932. We leave here at 1945. Final equipment check, then we move. Questions? Nobody had questions. They'd done operations like this before. Tight timelines, multiple objectives, everything, depending on precision and luck in equal measure. You planned as much as possible, then adapted when reality diverged from the plan. Because reality always diverged. The question was whether you could adapt fast enough to survive the divergence. Top cleaned his Glock for the third time that day. The ritual was calming, the familiar weight and mechanism focusing his mind. Around him, his team prepared in silence, each man dealing with pre-mission tension in his own way. At 1945, they loaded into the van and drove back toward Katia. Chapter 9. The backup generator sat behind a chain-link enclosure on the south side of the compound. Top studied it through the fence, an industrial diesel unit, probably 80 kilowatts with a fuel tank that could run for days. The access panel Felix had mentioned was visible, secured with a padlock that looked substantial even from 20 meters away. 2 guards, Matt whispered. He was prone on the roof of an adjacent building, providing overwatch through his scope. 1 at the main gate, 1 doing walking patrol. The patrol passes the generator every 4 minutes. Top checked his watch. 20:41. 9 minutes until Rachel killed the primary generator. 9 minutes to access the backup and disable it without alerting anyone. Sal, you ready? Top said into his radio. In position. Sal was in the alley behind the north wall with the ladder and angle grinder, waiting to complete the window cuts when the lights went dark. Benny. Ready. Benny was with Sal, prepared to climb once the bars came free. Top moved along the fence line, staying in shadows between streetlights. The compound's southern perimeter backed up against an industrial area. Warehouses and vehicle repair shops closed for the night. No witnesses, no crowds, just empty streets and the smell of motor oil. The walking patrol approached. Top pressed himself against a concrete pillar and waited. The guard passed within 5 meters, his attention focused inward on the compound rather than outward at the fence. His rifle hung loose on its sling. His radio crackled with chatter about the arriving officers. The guard continued his circuit. Top gave him 30 seconds, then moved to the generator enclosure. The fence was 3 meters high with barbed wire on top. He pulled bolt cutters from inside his jacket and clipped the bottom chain link, making a gap large enough to squeeze through. Inside the enclosure, the generator hummed on standby mode. The access panel was mounted low on the unit's side, secured with a master lock that would take too long to pick. Top pulled a small pry bar and worked it into the hasp. The metal resisted, then bent. The lock popped free with a crack that sounded like a gunshot in the quiet. He froze. Listened. No shouts, no running footsteps, no indication anyone had heard. The compound's ambient noise, voices, vehicles, generators, had covered the sound. Top opened the access panel. Inside was the fuel line system, intake from the tank, filter assembly, line to the engine. He pulled a folding knife and studied the connections. Cutting the fuel line would disable the generator, but leave obvious evidence of sabotage. He needed something that looked like mechanical failure. The fuel filter gave him the answer. He loosened the filter housing until fuel started dripping, then tightened it just enough to slow but not stop the leak. When the generator tried to start, it would suck air instead of fuel. The engine would turn over, cough, and die. Mechanics would eventually discover the loose filter, but by then the mission would be long finished. His radio clicked twice, Matt's signal. The patrol was returning. Top closed the access panel and moved to the fence gap. He squeezed through and rolled behind a stack of pallets as the guard's flashlight beam swept past. The guard paused at the generator enclosure, examining it. His light played across the fence. Top's hand moved to his Glock. If the guard saw the cut fence, he'd investigate. If he investigated, he'd find the tampered generator. If he found that, the whole operation collapsed. The guard's radio squawked. A voice told him to report to the gate, more officers arriving. The guard responded and moved away, his flashlight beam bouncing with his stride. Generator disabled, Top said into his radio. Moving to position. He ran low across the industrial yard and climbed a fire escape to the roof where Matt waited. From here, they had clear sight lines to the compound's north wall and the conference room windows. 3 bars visible, Matt said, watching through his scope. Sal's ladder is in place. Top checked his watch. 20:48. 2 minutes until Rachel killed the power. All units check in. Sal ready, came the reply. Benny ready. Matt's with me, Top said. Remember, when the lights go out, we have maybe 10 seconds before emergency lighting kicks in. Sal finishes the cuts, Benny climbs, accesses the room, finds the printer, installs the software. 5 minutes maximum before Ayala arrives. Understood, Sal said. Top watched the compound through binoculars. The courtyard was full of vehicles now. Officers in National Guard uniforms gathered in small groups, smoking and talking. The conference room windows remained dark. Equipment was set up, but nobody was inside yet. 20:49. Top's phone buzzed. Text from Rachel, 60 seconds. He relayed it to the team. Sal started the angle grinder and pressed it against the final anchor point on the 3rd bar. The whine cut through the night. Inside the compound, heads turned toward the sound. A guard pointed at the north wall. They heard it, Matt said. Doesn't matter. 30 more seconds and we won't need stealth. The guard started walking toward the north wall. He pulled his radio and spoke into it. More guards appeared, moving to investigate the noise. Sal, you need to finish, Top said. Almost there. Sparks showered down the wall. The guard was 20 meters away now, moving faster. He unslung his rifle and chambered around. 15 seconds, Top said. The angle grinder's pitch changed as it cut through the final millimeter of steel. The third bar came loose. Sal shut off the tool and descended the ladder just as the guard reached the corner. The guard's flashlight played across the wall. He saw the ladder and raised his rifle. Every light in the compound went dark. Blackness hit like a physical thing. The only illumination came from distant streetlights and windows in surrounding buildings. Top heard shouts from inside the compound, confused voices calling to each other. Go, Top said. Sal climbed the ladder with the speed of a man who'd done thousands of training repetitions. At the window, he pushed against the bars. All three came free together, the pre-cut anchor points releasing. He set the bars aside and kicked through the glass. The sound was masked by the chaos below. Benny followed up the ladder. He pulled himself through the broken window and disappeared into the dark conference room. I'm in, Benny's voice came through the radio. Searching for the printer. Below, emergency lights flickered to life. Battery-powered units mounted on buildings, casting weak illumination across the courtyard. Guards shouted orders at each other. Someone yelled about checking the generators. 30 seconds, Top said. Benny, you need to move. Looking. There's a lot of equipment in here. In the courtyard, a guard ran toward the south building where the backup generator was housed. Another ran toward the maintenance building with the primary generator. They'd discover both problems soon. Found it, Benny said. Canon printer, right where the contact said. Installing the software now. Top counted seconds in his head. The backup generator should try to start any moment. When it failed, someone would investigate. When they investigated, they'd find the fuel filter. When they found that, they'd know someone had sabotaged it. The compound stayed dark. Top heard the backup generator trying to start, the engine turning over, coughing, dying. Trying again. Same result. Software installed, Benny said. Extracting now. A guard appeared at the conference room door. His flashlight beam swept through the broken window. He saw the missing bars and shouted into his radio. Benny came through the window feet first, hanging from the frame by his hands. He dropped onto the ladder and descended in controlled falls, using his hands and feet on the rails to slide more than climb. Sal collapsed the ladder. They ran toward the alley exit as guards converged on the north wall. Flashlights probed the darkness. Someone fired a rifle into the air, warning shot or panic, Top couldn't tell. Matt's rifle cracked once, suppressed but audible. A floodlight that had just switched on went dark again, the bulb shattered. Moving, Matt said. They descended the fire escape and hit the ground running. Behind them, the compound erupted in chaos, shouting guards, more rifle fire, vehicle engines starting. Top reached the van and yanked open the driver's door. Matt dove into the passenger seat. Sal and Benny piled into the back. Top started the engine and pulled away from the curb without lights. 3 blocks away, he flipped the headlights on and merged into traffic. Behind them, the sound of sirens started building. Everyone intact? Top asked. Good, Sal said. Fine, Benny said. Magazine down 1 round, Matt said. Otherwise perfect. Top took random turns, heading generally east toward Peter but avoiding direct routes. In the rearview mirror, he watched for pursuit. Police vehicles passed going the opposite direction, responding to the compound. None of them paid attention to a construction van in traffic. "The software installed?" Top asked. "Completely," Benny said. "The printer accepted it, no errors. Every document Ayala prints tonight will have corrupted information." "And nobody saw your face?" "Guard at the door had a flashlight, but I was already out the window. He might have seen a silhouette, nothing more." Top drove for 20 minutes, taking a route that doubled back on itself 3 times. No pursuit appeared. Finally, he headed for Peter and the safe house. His phone rang. "Rachel. I'm hearing interesting reports on police radio," she said. "Break-in at a National Guard facility in Katia. Shots fired, no casualties. Someone sabotaged both generators and broke into a secured conference room." "Sounds exciting," Top said. "It sounds like you just gave Ayala's people a very clear warning that someone's interested in their meeting." "Can't be helped. The mission required access to the printer. We got access. At the cost of operational security. Ayala will be on high alert now. He might postpone the meeting." "Will he?" Silence on the line for 3 seconds. "My source says no. Ayala's too stubborn. He'll increase security and proceed as planned. But your faces are now associated with this compound. If any of those guards saw you clearly, descriptions are being circulated." "They didn't see us clearly," Top said. "It was dark and we were fast." "I hope you're right. Because if Ayala connects tonight's break-in to his meeting and realizes someone tampered with his printer, he'll check every document before distributing them." Top hadn't considered that. "The software is undetectable, right?" "From casual inspection, yes. But if Ayala prints a test page and compares it to the original document on his laptop, he'll see the discrepancies immediately. Then we better hope he's too busy dealing with security concerns to run tests." "Hope is not a tactical plan," Rachel said. "No. But sometimes it's all you have." He disconnected and focused on driving. The safe house appeared ahead, the apartment building rising from Peter's sprawl like a concrete monument to poverty and resilience. They climbed the stairs and entered the apartment. Felix was monitoring 3 different radio frequencies, his face illuminated by laptop screens. He looked up as they entered. "Police are searching for suspects in the Katia break-in," Felix said. 2 men, possibly foreign, last seen fleeing north. "They're setting up checkpoints on major roads." "We came through residential streets," Top said. "We're clear. For now. But this city is talking. Word spreads fast in Caracas, especially about Americans causing trouble." Top moved to the table and pulled out the mission timeline. 3 targets, 3 different approaches. Rojas should be in custody by now, arrested on embezzlement charges that would keep him locked up through tomorrow's strike. Cardenas was in the hospital, incapacitated by a panic attack he'd remember for the rest of his life. And Ayala's coordination network was compromised by software that would make his carefully planned response fall apart in confusion. "We need confirmation on Rojas," Top said. "Felix, can you check if there were any high-profile arrests today?" Felix typed on his laptop. News sites loaded, government announcements, police reports. He scanned through them quickly. "Here," Felix said. "General Hector Rojas, detained this afternoon on suspicion of corruption and embezzlement. Held pending investigation. No bail." "Good." Cardenas. Admiral Luis Cardenas, hospitalized this afternoon after suffering what doctors describe as acute anxiety episode with cardiac symptoms. Condition stable, under observation. Also good. Top looked at his team. 2 down, 1 compromised but not confirmed. "We won't know if the printer software worked, until Ayala distributes those orders tomorrow. By then the strike will be underway, Matt said. Exactly. Which means our job is done. We've neutralized the 3 targets to the best of our ability. Now we wait and see if it was enough. His phone rang again. He was getting tired of that sound. Top answered. "This is Colonel Hendricks," the voice said. Crisp, professional, with an edge that suggested something had gone wrong. "Are you on secure comms?" "As secure as we're going to get in Venezuela, sir." "Then listen carefully. The strike timeline has moved up. We're launching at 0400 instead of 0600. That's 5 hours from now. I need confirmation that your targets are neutralized." Top felt his stomach drop. Rojas is in custody. Cardenas is hospitalized. Ayala's network is compromised, but we won't have confirmation until he attempts to use it. Compromised isn't good enough. I need that network dead, or the whole strike is at risk. "Sir, we've done everything possible. We infiltrated his meeting location, corrupted his printer. When he distributes orders, they'll be wrong. His people will scatter. And if he discovers the corruption before distributing the orders?" Top didn't have an answer for that. "That's what I thought," Hendricks said. "You have 5 hours to make absolutely certain Ayala can't coordinate a response. I don't care how you do it. Use your initiative. But make it happen." The line went dead. Top set the phone on the table and looked at his team. 3 faces waiting for orders, waiting to hear what impossible thing they'd need to do next. "The strike moved up," Top said. "We have 5 hours. Ayala's network needs to be completely dead, not just compromised." "How do we kill a network in 5 hours?" Sal asked. Top pulled up the intelligence files on Ayala. The colonel's photograph stared up from the screen. Cold eyes, professional bearing, a man who'd survived in Venezuelan politics by being smarter and more ruthless than his competitors. "We don't kill the network," Top said slowly. "We kill the man who runs it." The room went quiet. "That's not the mission," Benny said. Rachel specifically said, "No bodies." Rachel's not in command anymore. Hendricks is. And he just told us to use our initiative. Top closed the laptop. Ayala meets with his officers at 2100. He'll be in that compound in Katia, surrounded by security, with a dozen armed officers in attendance. "You want to hit him there," Matt said. "During the meeting." During the meeting. When everyone's gathered in one place. When confusion is highest, because they're still dealing with the generator sabotage and the break-in. "That's insane," Sal said. "Yes. But it's the only way to guarantee Ayala can't coordinate a response to the strike." Top stood and walked to the window. Outside, Caracas spread across the valley in layers of light and shadow. "We have 5 hours to plan and execute an assault on a secured compound full of National Guard officers. We go in hard, we eliminate Ayala, we extract before they can organize a response." "We're 4 men," Benny said. "They have dozens. We also have surprise, superior training, and the advantage of knowing exactly where our target will be." Felix cleared his throat. "I can't be part of this. Breaking into a building is one thing. Assassinating a colonel is something else entirely." "Understood," Top said. "Give us what intelligence you have, then get clear. This part isn't your fight." Felix stood and gathered his equipment. He paused at the door. "You're either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both." "Probably both," Top agreed. Felix left. The apartment felt larger without him, emptier. Top looked at his remaining team. "Last chance," Top said. "This goes beyond what we were asked to do. This is assassination on foreign soil during an unauthorized operation. If we do this and survive, there might be consequences. There are always consequences, Matt said. Question is whether we accept them. Sal? Top asked. The SEAL was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled his Glock and checked the magazine. Colonel's right. Ayala needs to be dead. I'm in. Benny. Someone's got to keep you idiots alive. Might as well be me. Top nodded. Then let's plan a raid. We have 4 hours and 53 minutes to figure out how to kill a man surrounded by his army. Chapter 10. The compound's main gate opened at 20:47 to admit Colonel Vicente Ayala's convoy. Top watched through the scope from the same rooftop they'd used earlier. 2 armored SUVs, black paint gleaming under the floodlights that had been hastily repaired after the power outage. 6 security personnel visible, probably more inside the vehicles. Target confirmed, Top said into his radio. Ayala just entered the compound. Copy, Matt replied. He was positioned on a rooftop 1 block south with a suppressed AR-15, providing overwatch and long-range fire support. Sal and Benny were in the van 2 blocks away, engines running, waiting for the signal to move. The plan they'd developed over the past 4 hours was simple because complex plans fell apart under stress. Simple meant survivable. Simple meant driving a van through the compound's gate, throwing incendiary grenades into the courtyard to create chaos, breaching the conference room where Ayala would be meeting with his officers, and shooting anyone who tried to stop them. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't subtle. It was the kind of plan that got people killed. But it was the only plan they had. Through the scope, Top watched Ayala emerge from his vehicle. Mid-50s, compact build, moving with the controlled precision of a career soldier. His security detail surrounded him, 2 in front, 2 behind, 2 scanning the compound perimeter. They walked toward the main building, where the conference room waited on the 2nd floor. Ayala entering the building, Top reported. Give him 2 minutes to reach the conference room. 2 minutes, Sal confirmed. Top shifted the scope to scan the compound. He counted 13 visible guards, 2 at the gate, 4 on roaming patrol, 3 stationed at building entrances, 4 more scattered around the courtyard. All armed with Kalashnikovs or Beretta, ARCs 160s. All trained National Guard personnel who'd been specifically selected for internal security work. This was going to get messy. His phone buzzed. Text from Rachel, Strike Force is wheels up. First helicopters depart carrier in 90 minutes. Confirm Ayala neutralized. Top didn't reply. They'd know in the next 10 minutes whether Ayala was neutralized or whether 4 Americans were dead in a Caracas compound. 1 minute, Top said. He pulled his own weapon, the Glock with suppressor attached and 3 spare magazines. 21 rounds per magazine. 63 rounds total. He'd been in firefights that burned through that in under a minute. The radio clicked. In position, Sal said. Ready on your signal. Top watched Ayala disappear into the building. Through the conference room windows, he saw lights come on. Figures moving inside, officers taking seats, Ayala at the head of the table, his communications officer setting up the laptop and printer. The printer they'd corrupted 4 hours ago. The printer that would distribute orders that were subtly, fatally wrong. Except now that wasn't good enough. Now they needed Ayala dead, to be certain. 30 seconds, Top said. He descended from the rooftop using the fire escape, moving fast but controlled. His boots hit the alley, and he ran toward the van's position. Sal had it idling at the intersection, facing the compound's front gate. Top climbed into the passenger seat. Benny was in the back with 4 incendiary grenades, and an expression that suggested he'd made peace with whatever happened next. Matt, you ready? Top asked. Ready. I have clear sight lines to the courtyard and the conference room windows. Say when. Top looked at Sal. You clear on the plan? Ram the gate, drive into the courtyard, stop near the main building entrance. You and Benny bail out and breach the conference room. I provide covering fire and keep the van running for extraction. And if extraction isn't possible, then we improvise. Good enough. Top chambered around in his Glock. Matt, take out the gate guards when we're 20 meters out. Sal, punch through whatever's left of the gate. Benny, grenades into the courtyard the moment we stop. I'll breach the building. Ambitious, Benny said. We don't have time for cautious. Top checked his watch. 20:59. Execute now. Sal dropped the van into gear and accelerated toward the compound. The engine roared. Civilian vehicle transformed into battering ram. Through the windshield, Top saw the gate growing larger, the two guards turning to investigate the approaching vehicle. Matt's rifle cracked twice. Both guards dropped before they could raise their weapons. Sal hit the gate, doing 60 kilometers per hour. The steel bent and tore free from its hinges with a scream of tortured metal. The van crashed through and skidded into the courtyard, tires smoking on concrete. Guards scattered. Someone shouted commands. Rifles came up. Benny kicked the van's rear doors open and threw grenades in 4 directions. The incendiaries ignited on impact, white phosphorus burning at temperatures that turned night into artificial day. Smoke billowed up in chemical clouds. Top was out of the van before it fully stopped, moving toward the main building entrance. A guard appeared in the doorway. Top put 2 rounds center mass, and the guard went down. He vaulted the body and entered the building. Stairs ahead. He took them 3 at a time, lungs burning, Glock tracking for targets. Second floor hallway. 2 guards at the conference room door turned toward him. Top shot the first guard in the face. The second got his rifle up, but not aimed before Top's next 2 rounds punched through his chest. Both guards collapsed. Behind Top, the building shook with explosions. Benny's remaining grenades finding targets. Glass shattered somewhere. Men screaming. The conference room door was steel with a deadbolt. Top pulled a breaching charge from his vest, small explosive strip designed for exactly this purpose. He pressed it against the door frame near the lock and triggered the detonator. The blast was deafening in the confined hallway. The door blew inward off its hinges. Top went through the opening in a crouch. The conference room was chaos. 12 officers diving for cover, Ayala behind the table reaching for his sidearm, the communications officer frozen with a printout in his hand. Top shot the communications officer first because he was reaching for a radio. Then he shot the 2 officers closest to weapons. Then he shot Ayala. 3 rounds center mass. The colonel stumbled backward into his chair, eyes wide with surprise and pain. His hand dropped from his holster. Blood spread across his uniform shirt. The remaining officers were scrambling, some going for weapons, others trying to escape. Top shot 2 more, who made the mistake of raising rifles. The rest dove through windows or crouched behind overturned furniture. Target down, Top said into his radio. Extracting now. He backed out of the conference room, firing covering shots through the door. The hallway was full of smoke from the breaching charge. He couldn't see the stairs, but he knew where they were. He ran blind, trusting muscle memory. A guard appeared through the smoke. Top shot him twice and kept moving. Another guard came from a side room. Top's Glock clicked empty. He dropped the magazine, slammed in a fresh one, and put 3 rounds into the guard before the man could pull his trigger. Ground floor. The entrance was 30 meters ahead through smoke and chaos. Muzzle flashes strobed in the darkness, Sal laying down covering fire from the van. Top ran toward it, his boots slipping on blood or water or something else he didn't want to identify. A rifle cracked behind him. Something punched his left shoulder and spun him halfway around. Not a direct hit. The round had skimmed across his deltoid, tearing fabric and skin but missing bone. He kept running. Matt's rifle barked from his overwatch position, picking off guards who tried to pursue. Top reached the van and dove through the open rear doors. Benny grabbed his vest and hauled him inside. "Go!" Top shouted. Sal punched the accelerator. The van fishtailed through smoke and flames, heading for the destroyed gate. A guard stepped into their path with a rifle raised. Sal swerved and hit him, the van's bumper sending the man flying. They crashed through the wrecked gate and onto the street. Behind them, the compound was a war zone. Fires burned in 3 locations. Bodies lay scattered across the courtyard. The conference room windows were shattered, smoke pouring out into the night. Top pressed his hand against his shoulder. Blood leaked between his fingers, but the wound wasn't arterial. He'd been hurt worse falling downstairs. "Matt status?" Top said, into the radio. "Extracting from my position. 3 guards tried to climb up after you breached. They're not climbing anymore. Casualties on our side. Just you bleeding on Benny. Everyone else is fine." Sal navigated through Katia's streets, taking random turns heading generally east. Police sirens were already building in the distance. Response time in Caracas was faster than Top had hoped. "We need to ditch this van," Sal said. "It's got bullet holes and blood, and it's about as subtle as a bomb." "Felix has a backup vehicle," Top said. "Industrial area, near the river. 2 kilometers from here." They drove in silence, except for the engine and the distant sirens. Top wrapped his shoulder with gauze from a first aid kit, pulling it tight enough to slow the bleeding. Benny watched the street behind them, weapon ready, looking for pursuit that didn't materialize. The industrial area was dark and deserted. A Toyota sedan sat between 2 shipping containers, keys under the mat like Felix had promised. They transferred weapons and equipment in 30 seconds. Then Sal drove the van behind a warehouse where it wouldn't be immediately visible. Matt jogged up from the direction of his overwatch position, rifle case slung over his shoulder. He looked at Top's bandaged shoulder. "You're leaking," Matt said. "I'm aware." "How bad?" "I'll live. Get in the car." They piled into the Toyota. Sal drove with the calm precision of a man who'd conducted hundreds of extractions under worse conditions. Top pulled out his phone and texted Rachel, "Ayala neutralized. Extracting now." The response came immediately, confirmed. Caracas police reporting shooting at National Guard facility. Multiple casualties. No suspects in custody. Get out of the city. Working on it, Top replied. His shoulder throbbed in time with his heartbeat. The adrenaline was wearing off, and pain was filling the space it left behind. He'd need proper medical attention eventually, but for now the gauze and pressure would suffice. They drove through Caracas as the city erupted behind them. Every police vehicle in the district was screaming toward Katia. Military helicopters appeared overhead, searchlights probing the streets. Roadblocks were going up on major arteries. But Sal avoided the roadblocks by staying in residential neighborhoods where no cop wanted to work alone after dark. They wound through Petare, past the safe house they'd used, heading toward the eastern suburbs where Caracas transitioned from urban sprawl to rural poverty. Top's phone rang. "Hendricks." "I'm watching drone footage of the compound," Hendricks said without preamble. "It looks like a war zone. How many did you kill?" "Ayala's dead. His communications officer is dead. Maybe 8 or 9 guards. 3 officers in the conference room who didn't get out of the way fast enough." "Christ. I said neutralize him, not start World War III. You said, use my initiative. I used it. Hendricks was quiet for a moment. The strike force launches in 70 minutes. Thanks to you, there's no coordinated response waiting for them. Rojas is in custody, Cardenas is in the hospital, and Ayala's network just got decapitated. You did the job. We did the job, Top corrected. My team did the work. Acknowledged. Now, get across the border. Colombian authorities have been notified you're coming. They'll provide escort to the airfield where you'll catch transport back to the States. What about our tracks here? The safe house, Felix, the people who helped us. Already being handled. The safe house will be cleaned. Felix is being extracted separately. Anyone who had contact with you is getting compensation and relocation if they want it. You focus on getting your people out alive. The line went dead. Top leaned back in the seat and closed his eyes. His shoulder hurt. His back hurt. His knees hurt. He felt 60 years old and used up. Where to? Sal asked. Border. Same crossing point we used coming in. That's 8 hours of driving. Then we better get comfortable. Matt pulled out protein bars and distributed them. Nobody was hungry, but they ate anyway because professionals ate when they could. They'd learned that lesson in places where meals weren't guaranteed. The Toyota carried them east through darkness, leaving behind a compound full of dead men and a city that would be hunting for them by morning. Behind them, Venezuelan military and police would be launching the largest manhunt in recent history, looking for the Americans who'd assassinated a National Guard colonel and killed a dozen soldiers. But by morning, none of it would matter. By morning, U.S. forces would have Maduro in custody, and Venezuela would be dealing with a different kind of chaos. The death of Colonel Ayala would be a footnote in a much larger story. Top's phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Clean work. Brutal, but clean. Strike force is airborne. ETA Caracas 90 minutes. You bought them the window they needed. He didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. The mission was complete. 3 targets neutralized. 1 dead, 2 incapacitated. The operation that would arrest Maduro would proceed without organized military resistance because 4 Americans had spent 18 hours dismantling the response network piece by piece. The highway unwound before them, leading toward Colombia and extraction and whatever came after. Top watched the landscape slide past and tried not to think about the men he'd killed in the conference room. Officers doing their jobs, following orders from a colonel who'd made the mistake of getting too close to the cartels. But war had no space for sympathy. You identified targets, you eliminated them, you completed the mission. Conscience was a luxury for later, in places far from the work. Sal drove through the night. Matt dozed in the back seat. Benny cleaned weapons with the dedication of a man who understood that maintenance was survival. And Top sat with his bandaged shoulder and his racing thoughts, watching Venezuela disappear behind them, taking with it the evidence of their presence and the lives they'd ended. The Toyota crossed into darkness that stretched all the way to the Colombian border and the transport that would carry them home. Chapter 11. The checkpoint appeared 2 hours before dawn. Sal saw it first, flashing lights on the highway ahead, vehicles backed up, soldiers moving between cars with flashlights and rifles. He touched the brakes and the Toyota slowed. Roadblock, Sal said. Major 1. Maybe 20 soldiers visible. Top sat up from where he'd been resting against the window. His shoulder had stopped bleeding, but the pain had settled into a deep throb that made thinking difficult. Can we go around? Not without drawing attention. Highways elevated here. Side roads are visible from the checkpoint. Matt leaned forward from the back seat. They're searching every vehicle. pulling people out for questioning. This isn't routine traffic enforcement. They're looking for us, Benny said. Of course they're looking for us, Top said. We killed a colonel 6 hours ago. Every cop and soldier in Venezuela got our description. The traffic crawled forward. 3 cars ahead of them, soldiers were going through a sedan with flashlights, checking the trunk, questioning the driver. The process took 5 minutes before they waved the car through. Top pulled out his phone and called Rachel. She answered on the first ring. Where are you? She asked. Highway 9, about 40 kilometers from the border. There's a checkpoint. Heavy security. They're searching everything. I know. Venezuelan military set up 6 checkpoints on major routes leading to Colombia. They're looking for 4 foreign men, possibly wounded, fleeing in a civilian vehicle. That's us. I'm aware. Top heard typing on her end. Give me your exact location. Sal read off the GPS coordinates. More typing. There's a service road 200 meters before the checkpoint, Rachel said. Unmarked dirt track on the right side. Take it. Follows the river for 3 kilometers before reconnecting with the highway past the checkpoint. Will the soldiers see us leave the highway? Probably. But if you move now while they're focused on the cars ahead of you, you might get clear before they react. Top looked at the checkpoint. Soldiers everywhere, weapons ready, alert. Taking the service road meant revealing they were avoiding inspection. That meant pursuit. Other options? Top asked. None good. You could try to run the checkpoint, but those soldiers have anti-vehicle weapons. You could abandon the car and move on foot through the jungle, but that's 40 kilometers of rough terrain with you wounded. Or you can take the service road and hope you're fast enough to reach the border before they cut you off. Top weighed the choices. All bad, in different ways. Service road it is. Matt, Benny, weapons ready. This might get interesting. Always does, Matt said. Sal eased the Toyota to the right lane. The service road appeared ahead. Barely visible gap in the vegetation, dirt track that looked like it hadn't seen vehicles in months. Sal turned onto it without slowing, committing to the choice. Behind them, shouts erupted from the checkpoint. Flashlight beams swung toward them. A soldier raised his rifle. Contact, Benny said. Sal punched the accelerator. The Toyota's engine screamed, and they shot forward into the darkness. The dirt road was rough, full of potholes and exposed roots. The car bounced hard enough to throw Top against his seatbelt. His shoulder exploded in fresh pain. Muzzle flashes strobed behind them. Rounds cracked past the car and thudded into trees. The rear window shattered. Benny ducked low and returned fire through the broken glass, his Glock barking 3 times. The dirt road twisted through jungle. Branches scraped the car's sides. Sal drove by instinct more than sight, the headlights only illuminating a few meters ahead. They hit a washout, and the car went airborne for a second before slamming back down. Something underneath made a grinding noise. They're coming, Matt said, looking back. 2 trucks. Maybe 3. Top twisted in his seat and saw headlights bouncing through the jungle behind them. Military trucks, faster than they should be on this terrain. The soldiers weren't giving up. How far to the highway reconnection? Top asked. 2 kilometers, Sal said. Maybe 3 minutes at this speed. They'll catch us before then. I know. The road straightened out slightly, and Sal pushed the Toyota harder. The speedometer climbed to 80 kilometers per hour, insane for a dirt track and darkness. A curve appeared, and Sal took it with 2 wheels barely touching ground. They slid sideways, and Sal corrected with a precision that came from training Top couldn't remember him receiving. Behind them, the trucks were closing. Maybe 50 meters back now. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness as soldiers fired from the truck beds. We need to slow them down, Top said. Working on it, Benny replied. He'd climbed into the cargo area and was firing methodically through the shattered rear window. His shots weren't aimed to kill at this distance and speed. They were aimed to make the drivers nervous. One truck swerved and clipped a tree. It spun out and stopped, blocking the road behind it. The second truck had to slow to navigate around. That bought them 30 seconds. The highway appeared ahead, paved road visible through a gap in the trees. Sal hit it doing 90, and the car fishtailed as the tires found traction. He corrected and accelerated east toward the border. The pursuit trucks emerged from the service road seconds later. They were bigger, heavier, built for this kind of chase. The gap started closing again. Top's phone rang. He answered while watching the trucks in the side mirror. I'm tracking you, Rachel said. You have two problems. First, the checkpoint soldiers radioed ahead. Colombian border is closing the crossing. Second, there's another checkpoint being set up 10 kilometers ahead of you. You're boxed in. Then we need to get off the highway again. There are no more service roads. You're in open terrain until you reach the border. So we go cross-country. In that car. You won't make it 100 meters. Top thought fast. The border was maybe 30 kilometers ahead. Between here and there, 2 checkpoints and pursuit vehicles, and probably helicopter support once daylight hit. The odds of reaching the official crossing point were approaching 0. What about the river crossing? Top asked. The Tashira River, where we entered. Can we use that exit? That's 40 kilometers south of your current position. You'd have to double back past the checkpoint you just avoided. But once we're across the river, we're in Colombia. Venezuelan military can't follow. Technically true. Practically complicated. But it's probably your best option. Sal heard enough of the conversation to understand. If we're going back, we need to do it now, before more units arrive. Top looked at the pursuit trucks in the mirror. 2 vehicles, maybe 16 soldiers total, all armed and angry. Running from them meant they'd follow. Leading them back toward the checkpoint meant running into reinforcements. New plan, Top said. We stop running. Elaborate, Matt said. The trucks pursuing us, they're our ticket out. We disable them, take one, drive it back to the river crossing. Venezuelan military vehicle won't draw attention until we're already across. That requires stopping and fighting, Benny said. Against 16 soldiers. Against 16 soldiers who aren't expecting us to fight back. Top checked his Glock. 1 magazine left, plus the partial in the weapon. Maybe 30 rounds total. Sal, find a spot to stop. Somewhere with cover. Matt, Benny, prepare to engage. Sal scanned the roadside. There. Concrete bridge over a drainage culvert. We can use the bridge supports for cover. Do it. Sal killed the headlights and slammed the brakes. The Toyota skidded, and he cranked the wheel, putting the car sideways across the road. They bailed out before it fully stopped, taking positions behind the bridge supports. The pursuit trucks came around the curve, doing 60. Their headlights illuminated the abandoned Toyota blocking the road. The lead truck's brakes locked up, and it started sliding. Matt fired first. His suppressed AR-15 coughed 3 times, and the lead truck's windshield shattered. The truck swerved and clipped the bridge railing, coming to a violent stop at an angle that blocked both lanes. Soldiers piled out of both trucks, taking cover behind their vehicles. Someone shouted orders. Rifle fire erupted, rounds sparking off concrete and asphalt around Top's position. Top leaned out and fired twice at a soldier trying to flank them. Both rounds missed, but drove the soldier back behind cover. Benny was firing from the opposite bridge support, his shots more accurate. A soldier went down, clutching his leg. The firefight settled into rhythm, soldiers advancing by pairs while others provided covering fire, Top's team picking off anyone who exposed themselves too much. The volume of fire was heavily weighted toward the Venezuelans, but they were attacking across open ground while Top's team had solid cover. A soldier threw a grenade. It bounced off the bridge support and rolled into the drainage culvert. The explosion was muffled by the concrete, more sound than shrapnel. Matt had switched from suppressed shots to rapid fire. His AR-15 barked continuously, keeping the soldiers pinned behind their trucks. Brass casings clinked on the concrete around him. He dropped an empty magazine and slammed in his last one. "Running low," Matt called out. "Make it count," Top replied. A soldier sprinted from behind the second truck, trying to reach better cover. Benny tracked him and fired twice. The soldier stumbled and went down. Another soldier tried the same maneuver on the opposite side. Top shot him before he made it 3 steps. The return fire was decreasing. Top counted maybe 8 soldiers still fighting effectively. The others were either wounded or pinned down too effectively to contribute. "Benny, Sal, covering fire on my mark," Top said. "Matt, you're with me. We take the second truck." "Copy," they replied. "Mark." Benny and Sal opened up with everything they had, pouring rounds toward the soldiers' positions. Matt sprinted from cover with Top behind him, moving low and fast toward the second truck. Soldiers turned to engage, but the covering fire kept their heads down. Matt reached the truck first and cleared the cab, empty. Top covered the rear, while Matt climbed into the driver's seat. The keys were in the ignition. Matt turned them, and the engine roared to life. A soldier appeared from behind the first truck with his rifle raised. Top shot him center mass. Another soldier tried to climb into the truck bed. Sal's fire from the bridge cut him down before he made it. "Go!" Top shouted. Matt threw the truck in reverse and backed away from the bridge. Top jumped onto the running board and held on as they accelerated. Benny and Sal ran from cover and scrambled into the truck bed. Rifle fire chased them, but they were moving fast now, putting distance between them and the surviving soldiers. Within 30 seconds, they were around a curve and out of sight. Matt drove hard for 2 kilometers, then pulled off the highway onto a side trail. He killed the engine, and they sat in darkness listening for pursuit. Nothing. Just jungle sounds and their own heavy breathing. "Everyone intact?" Top asked. "Good," Matt said. "Fine," Sal said from the truck bed. "Outstanding," Benny added. "Except we're in a stolen Venezuelan military truck covered in bullet holes." "But we have a vehicle," Top said. "And we're not boxed in anymore." "Sal, how do we reach the river crossing from here?" Sal pulled out the GPS unit. "Back roads and farm tracks. 30 kilometers through terrain that's going to be rough. 3 hours maybe." 3 hours until dawn," Matt said. "They'll have helicopters up by then. So we move fast." Top climbed down from the running board. His shoulder was bleeding again, blood soaking through the bandage. He ignored it. "Matt, you drive. Sal navigates. Benny and I will ride in back and watch for pursuit." They redistributed. Matt got the truck moving again, following Sal's directions onto progressively smaller roads. Paved gave way to gravel, gravel to dirt. They passed through tiny villages where dogs barked at their passage and lights came on in windows. Top sat in the truck bed with his back against the cab, weapon across his lap, watching the darkness behind them. Benny was on the opposite side, doing the same. The landscape slid past, jungle and farmland and small houses built from whatever materials were available. His phone buzzed. Text from Rachel. "Strikeforce has Maduro in custody. Operation successful. 0 U.S. casualties. You did it." Top read the message twice. Then he showed it to Benny. "We did it," Benny said. Somehow, we actually did it. We're not extracted yet. Details. We completed the mission. That's what matters. The truck bounced over ruts that felt like they'd shake the vehicle apart. Matt kept driving, following Sal's navigation through increasingly questionable terrain. Once they had to stop and move a fallen tree. Another time, they forded a stream that came up to the door panels. Dawn approached, the sky lightening from black to gray, birds starting their morning calls. Top watched the horizon and hoped they'd reach the river before full daylight exposed them to air search. The Tashira River appeared ahead, brown water flowing between jungle-covered banks. The same crossing point they'd used entering Venezuela. On the far side, Colombia and safety and the end of an operation that had lasted less than 24 hours but felt like a lifetime. "This is it," Sal said. "Cross here and we're out." Matt stopped the truck 20 meters from the water. "Current looks stronger than when we crossed before." "Doesn't matter," Top said. "We walk it. Leave the truck. We won't need it once we're across." They climbed out and waded into the river. The current hit immediately, colder and faster than Top remembered. His wounded shoulder screamed as he fought to keep his footing. The water reached his chest, and he felt the bottom sliding away beneath his boots. Matt went down first, the current sweeping his feet out from under him. Sal grabbed his vest and hauled him upright. They linked arms and moved together, 4 men forming a chain against the water. Halfway across, Top heard the helicopter. He looked up and saw it, a Venezuelan military Huey, maybe 500 feet up, following the river line. "Searching." "They see us," Benny said. The helicopter banked and descended, its rotor wash beating the water into spray. A door gunner leaned out with a belt-fed machine gun. "Move!" Top shouted. They pushed toward the far bank as the helicopter settled into a hover above them. The door gunner aimed but didn't fire, probably radioing for instructions, confirming targets, getting authorization to shoot Americans in Colombian territory. Top's feet found purchase on the bank, and he scrambled up, pulling Sal behind him. Matt and Benny emerged from the water seconds later. They were across. Technically, in Colombia. Technically safe. The helicopter door gunner opened fire anyway. Rounds chewed up the riverbank around them. Top dove behind a fallen tree and returned fire with his Glock, knowing the range was too far but needing to do something. Matt's AR-15 joined in, suppressed shots that had better reach. The helicopter's windscreen cracked. The pilot pulled up and away, gaining altitude. The door gunner kept firing, but the angle was wrong now, rounds going wide. Top's phone rang. He answered while staying behind cover. "Colombian military is inbound to your position," Rachel said. "Helicopter and ground transport. ETA 6 minutes. Venezuelan helicopter will withdraw when they arrive. Just stay alive until then." "Working on it." The Venezuelan helicopter circled, looking for another attack angle. The door gunner fired sporadically, forcing them to stay pinned behind minimal cover. Then Top heard engines, heavy vehicles moving fast through jungle. A Colombian Humvee crashed through the vegetation, followed by 2 more. Soldiers in Colombian uniforms, deployed with rifles raised. The Venezuelan helicopter banked hard and retreated across the river. Within seconds it was gone, leaving only rotor wash and settling dust. A Colombian officer approached, his sidearm drawn but pointed at the ground. He looked at the 4 Americans, soaking wet, covered in mud and blood, bristling with weapons. "You are the petroleum engineers?" the officer asked in accented English. Top almost laughed. "That's us. Congratulations on completing your conference. Come with me. We will escort you to your transportation." They climbed into the Humvees, and the convoy rolled toward the Colombian border station. Behind them, Venezuela receded into morning light, a country they'd entered illegally, operated in covertly, and left marked by violence that would echo in intelligence briefings for years. But Maduro was in custody. The strike had succeeded without organized military response. 3 Venezuelan officials had been neutralized before they could coordinate resistance. The mission was complete. Top leaned back in the Humvee's seat and closed his eyes. His shoulder throbbed. His back ached. Every muscle hurt. But they were alive, they were extracted, and the job was done. 4 men against a hostile country. 4 men who dismantled a military response network in under 24 hours. 4 men who'd done the impossible because someone needed it done and they'd volunteered. The Humvee carried them toward the airfield, where transport waited to take them home. Top thought about hot showers and clean uniforms and beer and sleep. The small rewards that waited after impossible missions completed. Later, there would be debriefs and after-action reports and probably medals given in classified ceremonies. Later, there would be questions about the colonel they'd killed and whether the mission had exceeded its authorities. But that was later. Conscripted, free on BOOKFUNNEL. Render. Operative. Sideways. Choke point. Decreed. In the dark. Credible threat. Border wars. Devil's rope. Target rich. Danger close. Blood ransom. Ghost coup. Foreign target. Judge's gambit, free bonus. Dead drop. Colombian gold. Vegas debt-free. No known connection. Plus. Zero trace, an action-adventure thriller. Perimeter, a military adventure thriller.